Let's start the show.
It's March 7th, 2012. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. I'm Will Smith. Dramatic pause. Joining me today, as always, on this, the 7th of March, Apple iPad, new iPad day, is Norman Chan. Norman, how you doing?
Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. This is unusual. We don't usually record this on Wednesday, but it's a special occasion, and shit's busy tomorrow, so GDC's on. We're going to all go to that. Gary's here. Gary, how you doing?
I'm well, thank you. What's this about a new iPad?
You look full of glee. There's a kind of sparkle in your eye, as if you're up to some mischief.
I think he's glowing.
There's a glimmer.
Yeah, are you pregnant? Is that what's happening?
I'm practically glowing. That's right.
Wow, congratulations, Gary.
Thank you. I'm due next Friday.
And you may also recognize the dulcet tones of Brad Shoemaker.
I'm here and I'm
the
ready
chair.
to talk into this microphone.
Yes. So, Brad, first off, let's get things out of the way up front.
Okay.
It's possible. Should we talk about your lunch today?
Nah.
We're just gonna go right by that.
Just leave that in the past.
Okay.
What happened to Brad's lunch? I didn't know about this.
Brad had a slight adventure at lunch. I had a similar adventure on Tuesday.
I see.
Wait,
Yeah.
I want to hear about this.
We'll talk about this. Maybe this is an after the show.
No.
conversation.
We
think
don't.
we're all good.
We are not supposed to talk about real tech news until we get the boring stuff out of the way.
It's getting way too inside baseball here.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Good
no,
burn.
boy.
Well done.
It all started when I heard I was listening to the episode this morning from like maybe 2 weeks ago when you guys were giving Norm a world of shit for needing to go to the bathroom,
Yeah.
but not allowing him to.
No.
And then I stipulated I would only do this podcast
Yeah.
if I'm
Norm's not allowed to go to the
if I'm
bathroom
free
still.
because I've been consuming diuretics pretty much all day.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Upsies
that-
and downsies, it seems.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I don't.
this is very mysterious.
Oh no!
Anyway.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So yeah, it's iPad day. Let's just get right to it. Let's skip all the normal nonsense. Gary, it looks like he's about to explode.
I'm calm. I'm chilling like Magellan.
After I don't even know what that means.
I
'cause
neither
that's
do
not
I.
how you say Magellan. But
I'm chilling like Magellan.
after the
You're gelling.
after
Wait, what? It might be this.
yeah,
It might
alright.
be this Sumatran coffee that I've drank way too much
Oh
of.
yeah, that's I like
Between
so
that
much of it.
and a new Apple product launch,
Yeah.
it's like the 4th of July fireworks
hopped up
going
on
off in my
goofballs
brain.
over
Yeah,
there.
that's right.
Tim Cook took the stage this morning at Buena Vista Center, Yerba Buena Center. Buena Vista is a social club, I think. He introduced the new iPad. It's
You
not
want
the
to talk about the iPad first?
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
important.
Let's talk
thing.
about the iPad.
We'll talk about Apple TV later. We can talk about the Grand Central Station Apple Store if you want to get
Nope.
real shilly.
Nope.
But yeah, Apple TV, iPad 3,
No.
new iPad. Sorry,
The new iPad.
the new iPad.
So, obviously, rumors since last summer, probably, right? About
since
whether-
a week after the iPad 2 came out.
Yeah, but they really kind of started last summer when people speculated, oh, maybe there would be a fall iPad event. Maybe there would be 2 new iPads last year. Of course, it didn't happen. And then
No.
the past 6 weeks, maybe post-CES, was when the iPad 3 rumors really started rolling in. And up until the very last minute, we had reports, sources saying that the name, VentureBeat and CNET both said, not iPad 3, it's going to be called the iPad HD.
No, wrong.
And then The Verge saying, their sources confirmed to them that it would be a dual core. And right when other publications were writing about the benefits of a quad core, A6 CPU system on a chip. So no more rumors. It's just the facts now.
There's still a few rumors.
Still a few things that we
Okay.
don't know until the iPad's
Yeah.
actually taken apart.
So
It
so
is
the high
called
points.
the new iPad.
It's just going to be called the iPad after it's not new anymore.
It's just going to
Sure.
be called iPad. There was
Yeah.
a brief flirtation with iPad 2, but again, like we were saying before the show, even though it was marketed as iPad 2, it
Yeah.
only ever said iPad on the
On the-
box.
Yeah, the box has always
So I
said
don't think
iPad.
and so I think that they're now Apple's basically abandoning the number scheme, and every year it's just going to be the new iPad.
Yeah,
Well,
what
if
they're
you go
saying
to a
is
store now and you say, I want an iPad, they're still going to ask you which one.
They can say, do you want the iPad 2 or do you
2?
want the new iPad?
Exactly.
Very simple.
Very simple. if you look at it, just don't turn it on from just if there was an iPad 2 and a new iPad on the table, you would not be able to tell them apart from a distance.
Right.
From a distance.
From 3 feet.
There was no real industrial design change.
The home button is still there.
They're a little thicker.
They're 0.7 millimeters thicker.
Really?
If that matters.
I'm out.
The people
That's less than a millimeter.
Well,
Forget it.
That's not the deal breaker. Here's the deal breaker. It's heavier.
It's 60 grams heavier at 1.4
That's a tenth
pounds.
of a pound. Tenth of an ounce.
I don't think anyone's gonna really
0.15
notice.
I can't remember. Yeah,
My
0.15
my
pounds.
my only concern was whether or not I would have to buy a new, because I used to keep my iPad in the nightstand in a dock.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, if they change it thicker, I'm gonna have to buy a new dock.
No.
Fits the old dock.
I
Fits
think
the
that
old dock.
I think that iPad 1 dock might be the longest lived Apple accessory ever.
This
now.
is actually
And the
not-
iPod 1 dock with a keyboard, the least used accessory.
It's the shittiest
ever.
accessory ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
So your smart covers will still work.
Yep,
on the iPad
That's
2.
confirmed.
They start off with a list of 6 features. I think it was 6. The screen. Confirmed.
Don't do their list of features. Here's the important stuff.
Retina display.
Quad resolution display. 4 times the pixels,
They're calling
2048
it
by
Retina,
1536.
2048 by 1536.
264 pixels per inch.
Yep.
Which gives you the same kind of acuity that you get on the iPhone 4 display, because you typically hold the iPad a little further away than you hold the
They're
iPad.
So they
saying
are in
15
fact
inches.
marketing it as a Retina display.
They
yeah,
are.
I don't care how they're marketing it. It's going to be, I mean, everybody says it looks really nice.
It's still LED backlit LCD
IPS.
IPS display,
a new sub-pixel layout, though.
probably.
And they made a big deal of selling it in a way that I guess consumers can get, which is this is a higher resolution display than your 1080p TV, right? That's a very simple way to put it.
Yeah. Now, there's a bunch of questions that come with that. First, that's a number of pixels when you, like, from a gaming and video perspective. That is a number of pixels that a typical desktop PC can't really drive. So I have a hexa-core CPU, 6-core CPU, and a $500 video card in my computer at home, and I don't want to say it struggles at 2056 by 1600, which is obviously more pixels. But once you get above 1920 by 1080, 1920 by 1200, whatever, then you see some performance degradation. You have to turn off things like anti-aliasing and anisotropic filtering and all that. And that's with a machine that consumes like 1200 watts of power, right, under full load. So it's a big machine. And even though there's some, we'll talk about CPU and GPU stuff in a minute. I really question. I don't think they're gonna be able to render 3D stuff at native resolution,
Or at least
on
not
this display.
all 3D.
But yeah, I was
Many
reading
games-
I was reading a story right before I came in here from talking to some developers across the street at GDC, saying, we don't think that, just from what we've heard, that the under the hood performance is going to be able to keep up with like that increase in resolution.
I think that may be a concern for big, like
For
the
Infinity Blade.
idea of Infinity Blade running at that resolution, that remains to be seen. But I think in terms of the basic UI experience and running basic apps, as we know, Apple's very protective about the fluidity of the experience in the same way they're protective
Absolutely.
about battery life. So I don't think they would have gone there unless they felt like they could protect the frame rate and the seamlessness.
I have
of it.
no concern about 2D performance, desktop performance.
But my question is,
desktop
like,
equivalent
UI
performance.
UI
stuff is
existing
fine.
existing iPad games
Yeah.
that render. It's not going to obviously it's not going to make a 2x button on the new iPad.
Right.
Where you're running games in window. It's going to render that at the full resolution.
Norm, do you remember we went to CES and saw 4K projectors
Yeah.
with
No, I'm
scalers
saying-
attached to them?
So are those going to be the games just going to be scaled?
I
The
think
current
everything's gonna
iPad
get scaled
1 game, iPad 2 games, Infinity Blade right now on iPad is just going to be scaled up.
I think
Well, so-
all 3D games are going to get
It's
scaled
something
up.
you see on consoles all the time.
Yeah.
Like the pixel counters are always screaming like, "Oh, Modern Warfare 3 is only actually like 580p or
Yeah.
something, and
Yeah.
it's scaled up to 720." So,
Especially when you turn 3D on.
so
for
is
those
that a
games.
possibility here? Like, does it has that kind of scaling?
Yeah,
built into it?
absolutely. And
Scaling is very noticeable, especially.
it depends. It depends. There's a bunch of stuff that depends on it. It depends on the hardware that's doing the scaling, and it depends on how many source pixels you start out with. The bigger, the higher resolution the source, the better the scaling looks, because there's more pixels and more information that they can then interpolate out. And
It's
it
one of
works
those
out.
cases where I actually want to see the aliasing because that affirms to me, when the aliasing is as fine as the pixels are dense, then it's running at native resolution.
Well, you're not going to get 3D games running at native resolution on a tablet.
Well,
I don't
well,
think.
we'll
I would
see.
like to
We'll
see
see.
that.
I think someone's certainly going to try.
I think you'll see simple stuff. I think you'll see like simple, relatively simple. You're not going to see Infinity Blade 2 running on that. You'll note that the Infinity Blade that they showed off today is more isometric.
It's a roguelike.
Yeah, it's a simpler looking. It's a less complex, detailed game.
So the immediate benefits, regardless of what art assets are generated for games or applications, is text. any application right now that runs uses the iPad's text renderer is going to look better,
right?
Whether it's Twitter or iWork or whatever.
And even stuff like this does apply to other games. Like when you play, if you've played the Dominion port or Ascension, card games that have a lot of text, read comic books. I can't wait to see what good comic book.
No, comic books have to all be redone.
They're all going to have to be rescanned.
Recompressed.
So they're going to need to be 300 DPI.
Well, I mean, just as when the Retina came in for the iPhone, a lot of people are going to have to redo their content. Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty obvious.
Yeah,
but I think they've given the developers enough warning because a lot of developers have anticipated this.
Yeah, they have the resolution to work to now, and I think, like you said, text is really what pops the best. And if you're like me and you use your iPad mostly as a reading machine, like reading tweets, reading the web, reading news apps and stuff like that, that I think is where you're going to see the big difference.
Do you remember when
hold on. Just think about if you've ever read a comic book in the iPad, you know that you frequently have to do the double tap to zoom into a frame in order to read the text well.
Right.
Assuming that the source material is up-resed, that stuff will go away.
I still think you will have to, because like for something like a comic book where the aspect ratio of the page, of a single page, is such that you're just going to get a ton of black bars. As fine as the text is, it's still, you're going to still have to squint, and
then it becomes a vision problem, not a resolution problem, which is I'm okay with that. I'm fine with my eyes being the weak part of the link.
The density of pixels is close enough to printed page.
So they did make the iPad available for people after the event, right? And people have been giving their impressions of what the screen looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and uniformly positive.
The text is. They say it's just about the jump that we all experienced when we went from 3GS to 4. On the iPhone, but on a bigger screen.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see it in the flesh.
But do you remember when the iPhone 4 came out and we all rushed to the App Store and tried to find apps that actually were rendered at 960 by 640?
Yeah, and there weren't any.
There were like one or two, like the helicopter game, the shooter games, and they were bad initially. But those are the ones everyone bought because everyone just wanted to see what
they just wanted to see the new res.
Yeah, but
it's another opportunity for developers to get in on this, the new boom,
the ground wave of the new thing. Yeah,
right.
It's like when the gyroscope came out and you had the weird gun range app and all that stuff. That stuff will happen. And the good thing is, at this point, after the last time Apple did this with the iPhone, they learned, developers have learned that there's a big benefit to doing this early. So I think there will be much more of a rush this go around than there was last time.
So the high res display is obviously the flagship feature.
Huge deal. Yeah. Otherwise, this would be a really, really boring launch.
Is there anything out there currently or anything in the pipipeline we know about that has a resolution on this level?
My 30-inch desktop panel.
On the tablet, ASUS announced a tablet at CES that was 1920 by 1200. And that was a 10-inch tablet.
Right.
This is just a little bit higher pixel density.
Well, there have been the rumors of that Samsung thing that was supposed to be announced at MWC a couple of weeks ago. And
people have seen that panel.
Yeah.
But that's not in a real product right now.
I'm very much looking forward. I remember the first time I saw the iPhone 4 and you saw the clarity of the screen. You were like, whoa. It's only when you see it in the flesh that you really appreciate just how crystal clear it is. And I think seeing that on an even bigger display is going to be even more
exactly.
affecting.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that.
Yeah. So who in this room already has a completed order?
I got 2.
Hands up everywhere. I literally got mine.
Gina wanted one too.
I got mine right before we came in. I tried all morning, couldn't get through the store, and then I tried on your computer at the last minute.
I can't tell you.
My computer's good.
The last thing I did before I walked in here was order my iPad.
I cannot tell you how much I wish I had a camera pointed at you guys when you did that leaping high five maneuver.
The worst high five I've ever seen.
Seconds after you finished that order, you were in the air with your hand like this.
And then we mashed wrists. It was
just wrong in every way.
Congratulations on consuming.
It actually really kind of took the shine off the moment.
Buying 2 of them and an Apple TV.
I think we all got we all got the same SKU as well, didn't we? We all went with the same one.
Yeah, it's.
Do you want to get back to the features?
Let's go back to features and we'll talk about this.
Okay, so the Retina is obviously the #1 feature.
That's the thing. That's the thing that people are going to look at and say, "Oh wow."
Yes.
Because otherwise, it looks exactly the same.
What do you think is the second most compelling feature?
I think probably the faster CPU. I mean, I think those two things go hand in hand because without the big change in the new CPU, it's still an A5. It's they call it the A5X.
Yes,
they call it the A5X. Yes. That was a rumor name based on what they saw in the serial numbers.
Is the X for extreme or extended or extrovert
they did not
or extra?
Name what the X stood for from a technical standpoint.
Excelsior?
It is still Apple didn't say dual core, but they said quad core graphics, and it's been confirmed now. It's dual core.
The spec sheet says
CPU,
dual core CPU. Yeah.
and it's the graphics chip has been boosted to be a quad-core graphics chip. Their marketing charts during the presentation said that they are 4 times as fast as the Tegra 3, but that also said that the iPad 2 was 2 times as fast.
And the
as
graphics
3,
chip bump is really the most important one, because these things go hand in hand, right? If you're going to have a display that high resolution, you've got to bump the power up to drive it.
Right, especially if you want to do 3D stuff.
Yes.
I'd assume that there's also a significantly enhanced scaler in there, which makes sense just because of the massive, because even on video, even if you're downloading 1080p video from the from the iTunes store, it's still going to be, it still has to be scaled up to run on this display.
Right.
So, that's crazy.
Right.
So
those kind of things go hand in hand. I guess the camera is the other big feature they're pushing, but
the camera's
we're not that excited about it.
So they've upgraded the rear-facing camera. The front-facing camera seems like it's the same. It's kind of unfortunate because the front-facing camera is the one that I've never used.
That's
the
the one
rear-facing
that seems like you
camera.
would use the most.
I hate that rear-facing camera.
The back camera,
back camera.
the ass camera,
The back camera.
the ass cam.
I think
The back camera.
even though
The
it
back
still
camera.
seems weird to shoot. I've seen people shoot
Camera
video on
got
an
back?
iPad and it looks
I've seen people
weird.
at events, like
I saw it at a
concerts and
concert.
stuff. Yeah, hold
But it
up
is,
an iPad.
but at least there is a half a reason to do it now, because you can actually shoot viable photos and video on it with that 5 megapixel 1080p camera, which before the camera on the current iPad is terrible. Like, it's not worth using.
It's an iPod Touch camera, basically.
Right, it's
which
pretty
is a
bad.
bad camera.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. It's interesting they didn't talk about the front camera, because that, to me, for FaceTime and Skype and video conferencing, that's the one that it seems like you would use more.
But that's still VGA. It's the same camera.
Yeah.
Same FaceTime camera.
So is that confirmed that they haven't upgraded the
It
front
is
camera at all?
VGA,
Correct.
yeah.
That's
But they're
disappointing.
calling it the FaceTime camera, which implies that maybe they've done something different to it.
Nope.
No.
The back is
Exactly
called
the same.
EyeSight. The front is called FaceTime.
Okay.
Lame.
Front is VGA. Back is 5 megapixel.
That's a bummer.
With the optics that they learned from the iPhone 4S.
Yeah.
All right.
So the 5-element lens
Well,
and the backlit stuff.
My hunch is that that's made possible by the extra thickness. It looks like the curve of the bevel is a little bit less.
It's
like-
still
like-
uniform in the back.
It's not, but it's not the same kind of. It's not the real gentle graded curve. It didn't look like in the photos I saw. It looks like it's a little more of a distinct curve.
I don't know.
And the camera is on the flat spot. So there's that iPhone 4S sensor and the iPhone 4 camera sensor was thick, which is why it's not in the iPod Touch or the iPad 2, according to iFixit at least.
So camera's a big deal, but not really.
No,
What
it's not a
else?
big deal.
Well, no, I mean it's something that
Well, I mean, look.
to my mind, LTE seems like
Well, okay, so we're getting
not
there.
to jump the gun here.
Well,
but,
just to finish on the camera, though, it's one of the things I thought they were doing that was kind of interesting is trying to market or present the iPad with the new camera and some of the new software as like a real soup to nuts that you could really shoot video and edit on this thing, and to a kind of almost like a prosumer level, you could actually really make movies in a way that on the original iPad you couldn't do that.
Yep.
So that's kind of cool.
I mean, I think they're definitely aware of this is a content consumption device, not a creation device.
They were really
thing.
pushing creation today.
They were.
I mean, they spent more time talking about iPhoto.
The new iLife suite for iPad, they made a big deal out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they spent literally more time talking about that than they did Apple TV, the Apple Store, the number
Right.
that they've sold, all of that stuff kind of combined.
And the point is that now that there is a viable camera on it, you can source the content and then manipulate it. You don't
Yeah,
have
a lot
to
of people
import
don't
stuff
have
into it.
iPhone 4 or 4S's, and they're buying one device,
Right.
and have a decent camera on that. It's good.
Right.
Well, yeah, and the old adage applies here too. The best camera is the one that you have. If you're sitting on the couch with the iPad and the dog is doing something stupid,
Yeah.
you take a picture with the iPad. So
Right.
I mean, I don't. If they were charging extra for it, I would be upset. Since it's same price as it always has been.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's awesome. It's
Okay.
all good for them.
So as Brad says, the other big flagship feature is going to be the 4G LTE.
Now,
Yeah.
This is one of the more highly contested features, and we'll get to the predictions made.
We'll talk
at
about
this
that
table
later.
a
Yeah.
little bit. But there is 4G LTE on the new iPad, both for AT&T and for Verizon.
Yeah.
Right. So the good thing is there aren't the mega SKUs this time. You're not going to have to say I want the AT&T or Verizon version because it's all together.
You still will. You still
yeah, no, they
have
are
to.
split.
Oh, you do have to
You
say that?
still have-
No, when you order, you say, "Do you want 4G?" and it has the same modem when you activate it. It locks
Yes,
onto that
exactly.
carrier.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
Works
there
just
aren't,
like the
there aren't
4S.
separate
Okay.
AT&T
So
and
fewer
Verizon SKUs like there
now.
were before.
There's
So
no.
it's an arbitrary split, is what you're saying. It's not hardware dependent.
Well, so the interesting thing is on the 4S, it's a unified chipset. So the modem and the baseband is my understanding is that they're one chipset that has antennas for both CDMA
Right.
and GSM.
So it's at Apple's discretion that they are locking it to a
well,
to a
probably
carrier.
at the carrier.
I think
Or
it's not
but
gonna be
it's a
like
business
last
thing,
time
not a
where
hardware
That's
thing.
more.
It
It won't be like last time where they come out on launch day saying we're all out of Verizon models. We have a few AT&T left, because it is, I think, all one.
We
thing.
won't have that. Like that's the thing that we specifically talked about, and I thought they're definitely
again,
not
this
going to
you
fix that problem.
You can't buy a Verizon, 4G iPad and then sell it a year later for someone who's on AT&T.
No, it is a
it
Verizon
will be
iPad.
locked to Verizon iPad.
Well, that's not confirmed. Assuming it works the same way as the iPhone 4S, once you lock it to one carrier, it's locked to that
but
carrier
the SKU lineup this time is simpler in that it's black or white, and then 16, 32, 64, just like before,
Yep.
in either Wi-Fi or 4G.
There's 12 SKUs basically all told. Last time they were 16, I think.
Right.
So that's interesting.
No, 12. Yeah, 12 SKUs.
12 SKUs.
That's it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's surprising.
It's the same number of SKUs as the iPhone.
Wow. Yeah.
Or I guess not, because there's an 8 and is there a 16 and a 32? It doesn't matter. I am profoundly unexcited by 4G on tablets. We've talked about this before. Like as a
for the way you use a tablet, because you use it at home on the couch.
No, that's not it. So the way the pricing breakdown works is it's $100 extra to increase each step per step for memory, right? So to go from 16 gigabytes of storage to 32, it's $100. To go from 32 to 64, it's another $100.
Right.
To add the 4G modem to any of those units, it's $130 premium.
Same as it was for 3G.
Same as it is and always
same
has
price
been.
structure.
Yeah.
For $260, you can go to Verizon and buy a MiFi off contract, right? That's what the off contract price is for a portable 4G hotspot.
Yes.
That gives you 5 devices worth of connectivity.
Yes.
Operates on a battery. You can use it to turn your 3G iPhone into a 4G device when you're in the car. If you're going to spend $130 extra on the iPad plus $25 to $50 a month depending on the data plan you choose, and you actually are going to use it and turn it on and off, you're better off spending $260 buying the MiFi off contract and buying data 5 gigs at a time on the MiFi.
Many people.
Why?
And using it for multiple devices.
Yeah, but you can use the iPad for multiple devices.
Yeah, that's up to the carriers. When
And
they
also
added that
typically-
feature to the iPhone, it took 2 years for AT&T.
Well,
Not only that,
they
you
announced it
charge
at
us-
launch today that it would function as a hotspot.
on which carriers?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's pending
But-
carrier support.
I guess it depends on the carriers, but that option is. I mean, I'm getting the Wi-Fi because I already do have one of those 4G devices, and they're great. I can feed 5 devices off it. But if you don't, and your carrier supports it, I don't. There are a lot of road warriors, a lot of people out there that really will use that feature, and they're going to love the ability to have their iPad also function as a 4G hotspot for their other computers or phones or whatever.
The good thing about the iPad is it actually has the battery to do it for real, unlike the phone where you want to leave it plugged in.
Right. Turning it into a hotspot typically costs an extra $10.
But yeah, it's going to be a $50 data plan instead of a $30.
Yeah. I mean, look, you should. I agree with you. You definitely should look at the 4G LTE option because that is a great device to have. You can also, I also you can get it pretty cheap if you're willing to sign up for the data contract. If you're the sort of person that's going to use a lot of data, by all means, you can have a 4G LTE iPhone today as well.
But if you're going to sign up for the data contract, then the whole it all changes when you're talking about signing up for data
It's worth
plan.
looking at the options. I'm just saying the 4G option is a very viable option for a lot of people built into the iPad.
Right, exactly. For same people who bought the 3G iPad and loved that, and who previously had the 4G MiFi option, but still went for the 3G iPad too. Those people are going to be even happier.
A lot of people
like
the Cell Radio iPad, and they obviously were going to continue. I don't know why people are surprised because Apple was obviously going to continue with that.
Oh, of course.
And this year, I think, as I said before, this is one of the predictions I called correctly. They weren't going to do another. Oh, we'll get into it.
Did you see me roll my eyes? I can do it harder if you want.
They weren't going to do another cellular iPad that was 3G, because this is the year where if you don't have LTE, you start to look behind the curve. So I think it felt like a no-brainer to me. I'm excited that it was confirmed, but it would have been more a case of me being disappointed if they hadn't had it than being surprised that
they did reduce the number of SKUs, though, also. I mean, it is a universal 3G
It's easier to do it.
Also, I want to go back to the 4G thing. Yes, the MiFi is a better value proposition, but for many people where that cost is not as much of a factor,
if the cost if $50 a month doesn't mean anything to you, then get everything.
Because a lot of people, I mean, even if you're traveling, right, taking the MiFi out of your bag, turning that on, holding it on, getting a signal, and then turning it and connecting the Wi-Fi over there. That's the inconvenience.
And again, here's the thing: if you do have if you go for a 4G iPad, right, and you turn and your data carrier supports hotspots, you've got a 4G iPhone as well the same day. And a 4G anything you plug into it. So
of course.
that hotspot feature is very cool.
I with no carrier support in the U.S. announced for the hotspot feature, I would not assume that that's going to apply to Verizon and AT&T at launch.
I think it will, and there'll be an additional fee.
Absolutely, there'll be an additional fee. It'll be $20 extra.
I don't think that they would have announced. I don't think that Tim Cook would have pointed it out today if it wasn't going to be available in the US.
They announced it last time, a full version, a full phone release before it was available in the US.
We'll see.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. I mean, it's a thing that is a possibility.
So 4G. So again, and all these features kind of connecting to each other, right? So 4G LTE is great, but what's really great is what they're saying the battery life is.
Well, hold on. Let's talk about 4G LTE one more thing. It's AT&T and Verizon right now. If you're buying that today, and you buy the AT&T one, you set it up for AT&T, you are a fool.
Yes.
The coverage on AT&T for their real 4G network is minuscule.
Yes. Get the Verizon
it's 4
LTE.
cities or 8 cities or something like that.
Yes.
Verizon is the way to go.
Even if you're not a Verizon phone customer,
it's completely separate because this isn't attached to your phone.
It's just
contract.
a la carte data.
You literally to sign up for this, you go into settings.
There's no contract, no plan.
You load up a settings panel and say, hey, I wanted to sign up for. Do you want to sign up for AT&T? Do you want to sign up? I assume. Or Verizon, and then you put in your credit card.
It the same way you'd buy Wi-Fi in a hotel or whatever.
But it will be a recurring.
Inside the settings app on the phone.
But it will be a recurring cost. It is off contract, but you have to turn it off monthly.
You got to remember to turn it off, otherwise it will roll over and keep.
Are there overage charges, or is it just every time you roll over you pay another bulk rate?
Yes.
I haven't used it since the iPad 1.
You're asking a different question. What we're saying is that even though it's a la carte and it is a month-to-month charge off contract, it will automatically assume that you want to subscribe to it until you tell it.
Yeah,
no.
right.
What you're asking,
what I'm asking is when you hit
your data limit, it will charge you the overage charges.
Yes.
Okay. It won't automatically bump you up to the next tier.
And you'll get the warnings and everything else like you do on your phone.
If you want next tier, you have to unsubscribe and then upgrade to the next tier for the next month.
And the benefit on the iPad, the other benefit on the iPad, especially if you're not doing, I assume the tethering is going to cost more. If you're, or the Wi-Fi hotspot, whatever, if you are setting up an account, you can get a 2 gig plan that's like $25.
Right.
I think the cheapest plan you can get on a MiFi and Verizon is $50, and I think it's $40 on AT&T.
Now it's a terrific feature
for 5 gigs.
Anyone who's experienced true, and by true I mean Verizon 4G LTE, you're blown away by it, right? It's amazing. It really is like having Wi-Fi everywhere you go. It's very impressive. Somebody pointed out to me the problem's going to be with the iPad. Because it is a content consumption device, it's much more viable to watch video on that on your phone or whatever.
You can't watch video over 4G.
You're going to want to watch your data.
Yeah, you like if you start watching video over 4G and you have a 2 gig plan, it's going to go real fast.
Right.
Especially if you're like renting 1080p movies from that. I mean, the thing is, they're pretty good about not allowing stuff that's going to destroy your data plan.
Right. And there's no unlimited 4G, so forget about that.
Yeah, so that's all stuff.
It's also worth mentioning that AT&T. I know again, don't even bother with AT&T because their LTE is not worth it yet. But it's also worth noting that Verizon also has better plan options. That they will sell you a 10 gig plan, I believe, that AT&T doesn't offer.
On the iPad too?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
This is one of the things I found today is they don't publish that information at all. Like the iPad specific plans are not listed on AT&T or Verizon's website.
It's on the Apple site.
Is it on for the new one though?
Yeah, that's how I know this because I saw it there.
I didn't know if it was. The Apple site was a little hitchy this morning. In case you didn't notice,
it's basically the same as their hotspot plans. It's $50 for 5 gigs. There's a lower. There is actually a lower tier plan which isn't available on the hotspots alone.
Okay.
Which I think is like 2 or 3 gigs for like $25.
So it's the same pricing as the phone then too.
And then 10 gigs for $80 if you want the high end, and that's the high end plan that AT&T doesn't offer.
And the 80 gig one includes hotspot too.
We don't know about the hotspots.
Okay.
So some features that they didn't talk about.
Actually, I got one more 4G question. Sure, I assume that even Verizon probably has a pretty small 4G customer base right now. Do you see any kind of like network saturation issues with this massive influx of new 4G customers?
I wouldn't.
No way to know.
It's definitely going to hit their network, and Verizon actually does have a lot of 4G rollout through its Android phones. So
yeah, it's like the networks are pretty good at figuring that stuff out, or they're not, and there's nothing you can do about it.
I don't think they can anticipate demand.
Right.
It's interesting how it goes back and forth, different carrier strengths. Like on the iPhone 4S, a lot of people said that AT&T was the better network all in all because of HSPA+. And there's really good speeds even on what is still ultimately a 3G phone. It's kind of like quasi 4G. But now on the iPad, I think Verizon clearly has the advantage when it comes to LTE.
I think the spectrum and the infrastructure is good enough that, and the how much bandwidth people use, because what are they downloading? They're downloading podcasts, sometimes movies. It's not going to saturate the network too much. It's more about the sheer number of quantity of devices that are going to be in the market. So I hope that they have good enough software and hardware so that the handshakes won't mess up the system.
And like any 4G device, I imagine it'll drop to 3G when 4G is not available, right?
Yes.
It's
there's
all kind of a seamless thing.
There are so many bands in this new iPad. They've all they say it has all the world bands. So there's a micro SIM port. If you take it overseas, you can drop a micro SIM. You can probably put in your iPhone 4 micro SIM in there and get 3G. You won't get your 4G.
Oh, hey, so I was just able to get into the store. It's working now, and it is actually prompting for AT&T and Verizon differences. So they're probably different SKUs.
Oh, so they may in fact be different SKUs.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
That's bananas. I can't believe they're doing that again, given the fact
there's a lot of SKUs.
that you could get all the AT&T iPads you wanted last
So I
March
think we will
7th
be hearing
or
a lot
March
of guys
20th or
coming
whatever.
out from the Apple Store saying, guys, all we have left are AT&T, because no one's going to want the AT&T model.
Oh, and then
Well,
they
you
groan.
think they're such a data-driven company, and they've optimized so much for like just in, just out production and supply and demand that they got to get it. They'll underestimate how many people want it.
Yeah.
And they'll be sold out regardless because
Right.
they won't be able to meet it. But the difference between how many Verizons and AT&Ts are producing can't be as close as last time.
One other thing to remember is that if you don't get the 4G, 3G one, there's no assistive GPS.
No GPS, period.
It only works off of Wi-Fi,
Don't
which
use
is
that.
fine because you don't ever. I find myself
never use
never
that
using
feature.
maps on.
And
the
even
iPad.
on the 4G iPad, it is assisted GPS only. There is no
it's
full
just like
GPS
this phone,
radio.
basically.
Right.
Yeah.
All right,
So-
what else is that pretty much all the features? Voice dictation,
Dictation, no Siri.
So there is no
So
Siri.
no full Siri, but certainly what is my personal favorite feature of Siri,
That's a good recovery.
because you can use it all over. I use it all. In fact, I used it just in the car here. I stopped at a light. I had a few moments to make a note to myself, so I just dictated it, and it took it perfectly.
So you
it was
can't-
great.
Note to
can't
Gary,
tone down-
you're awesome.
You
Yes.
can't hold down the home button and ask it to change your alarms or create a reminder.
Right. There's no full Siri, but
But
they
when
they
the
put in this one feature.
The virtual keyboard has popped up. There is now that same button.
That little
next
microphone.
to the microphone button next to the spacebar, where if you hold that, you can dictate something,
Right.
and it will transcribe that. You still need a internet connection
you.
for that to work. That does
So
not
it's-
happen
It's
on the
quasi
device.
Siri.
If you have an
When-
iPhone, it's there now. If you have a 4S, it's there right now.
Yes, it's there right now on your 4S on your keyboard. If you turn in your phone or your iPad into airplane mode, that button will go away. So it is pseudo Siri. That must mean that it has the right microphones for it, and all the hands-on testing from earlier today from other sites. People are saying that even in the crowded rooms, the dictation worked from your typical 15 to 18 inches away.
Right. So you want to talk
Yeah.
about battery life? Because that's the other
So
big
yeah,
thing.
so they're saying battery life remains the same. When Norm dug into the tech specs page, he noticed that the battery has gotten massively larger.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because we're talking about 4 times as many pixels on the screen.
Right.
So not physically larger, maybe physically larger. We don't know.
Probably physically larger, bigger box.
I mean, when you open the back of an iPad right now, it basically just looks like a big battery.
It's basically in an iPad 2. I think it's the same battery that's in an 11-inch MacBook Air second
Right,
gen.
right.
Or, well, second gen of the second body style.
and it's going to need that extra battery, to power what is ultimately a much more powerful machine, and also because 4G uses a lot of battery
but
life
even
as well.
even the Wi-Fi one has a much bigger battery.
So-
So,
but particularly
the screen is.
But it's telling that because people know that 4G is battery intensive, and a lot of Android devices out there that
Yeah.
use 4G have terrible battery life, that they made a point of saying 10 hours battery life, 9 hours on 4G. So they're making a point of saying, yes, we know you're concerned about 4G. It's actually still pretty good even on 4G.
Yeah, when they say 10 hours, they mean 10 hours with Wi-Fi or music.
They mean 10 hours of browsing the web is
yeah.
what they
Yes.
have
Right.
a benchmark that includes browsing the web, watching video, and,
Right.
and
So-
sound. That when we actually tested with just video rundown, which is much easier to accomplish when you don't have low-level access to the machine, it lasts like 16 hours.
To give you a sense of how much power the 4G and the screen itself is using, the new battery in the iPad now is 42.5 watt hours, and in the old iPad 2, half that basically, 25
Right.
watt hours.
So the battery definitely got a big boost.
In the MacBook Air, the 11-inch MacBook Air, there's a 35 watt hour battery. So you have a battery with more capacity
Wow.
in the new iPad than you would have in a 11-inch MacBook
That's
Air.
crazy.
So that like if they fuck up the batteries on this, then that's going to be an explodey little thing. Like there's a lot of energy packed into what are if it follows the past design, it'll be 2 big cells that sit in the back of the iPad.
Right.
The other thing is it's still shipping with the same 10-watt charger, so it theoretically should take much longer to charge, especially if you're doing the thing where you plug it into a normal USB port and turn the screen off and let it charge the slow way.
Yeah, maybe so. We'll see.
Yeah, and that also means that because most of the battery, we assume, is from the GPU and the rendering of the screen and the brightness on the screen, lowering the brightness will have a much bigger impact on your battery life than on the existing iPad.
Right.
Because you're conserving a lot more lumens. So
that's pretty much it for the new features, right?
That's the technical features stuff. They did not talk about exactly how much memory. They never have said how much memory in the iFixit teardowns. We knew that the iPad 1 had 256 megs of RAM, iPad 2 and iPhone 4S 512 megs of RAM, and I think one of the developers who came on stage today said there's more memory in the iPad.
I would not be surprised if there was a gig in this.
It was the guys from Epic that said
that.
And more than
famously responsible for 512 megs of memory in the Xbox 360. Right?
Yeah, they said it was more than the current consoles.
So hopefully there is a full gig of RAM in the new iPad, and one of the reasons Apple didn't go for a full gig of RAM in the iPad 2, even though people kind of shouted for it because all the Android tablets had a gig of memory, even Android phones, was that memory uses power nonstop, even when that memory isn't being utilized.
It's in suspend.
Yeah, power runs through that. And because there's the bigger battery in the iPad, they can accommodate that.
So the memory thing that who was it from Epic?
I think it was Mike Capps.
That seems right.
President.
Yeah. Memory is a real weird metric to measure console performance with.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those memory in a PC or a gaming console, because essentially 360 and PS3 are fans really customized PCs at this point.
PS3 less so.
Yeah. They basically. Memory is one of those things that as long as you have enough of it and it's a reasonable speed, then it's the least important, one of the least important bottlenecks, because they design the rest of the machine around that.
Right.
But anyway, it's interesting that thing is going to potentially be rendering, 3 or 4 times as many pixels or more as the
3D performance at native resolution is going to be the big unknown. We'll see it when we see it.
Yeah, that's the big question I have. They showed a lot of apps. They talked a ton about iPhoto, which we touched on a little bit.
Yeah, we'll get into the software stuff a little bit. The final spec stuff. Pricing's the same.
500, 600, 700.
A lot of people are worried that this panel obviously costs more, and it just shows how much money they're making with the first 2 iPads, because that panel, that 1024 768 panel, you can buy the replacement panel from suppliers in China dirt cheap,
like $150
right now.
Yeah.
It's one of the more expensive components in the iPad. iPad 2, their margin might be smaller because they're keeping the pricing scheme the same. And like I think we mentioned earlier, the iPad 2 is still going to be on sale, reduced $100.
Really?
$399 for the iPad 2 16 gig Wi-Fi.
There's the other thing
they're only keeping.
Thank you for pointing that out.
We're going to get to the scoreboard in just a second. They're only keeping the 16 gig model for the iPad 2. This is their way, like they keep the iPhone 4.
This
and
is the new entry level.
Yeah. How are they going to differentiate?
It's for kids
in terms of marketing. Like
they're calling it the iPad 2.
iPad 2 and the new iPad,
but not on the box, right?
iPad.
Aren't they all just going to say iPad on the box?
You don't remember. You don't go to the store and see the box. You go to the store and tell the blue shirt, "Hey, I want to buy an iPad."
So how do you ask for the old one now?
You say, "I want the iPad 2."
Or do you want the new iPad?
And then they say, "Do you want the iPad 2 or would you rather have the new iPad?"
Is the iPad 2 the new iPad? I'm gonna play old lady.
Yeah.
Is the iPad 2 the new iPad?
I don't want the iPad. I want the iPad 2. I want the new iPad.
See?
What? We have the iPad 2. We also have the new iPad. Which one would you like?
You want the iPad 2. It's better than the new iPad, right?
Would you like the new iPad? I thought the iPad 2 was the new iPad.
I don't know. I've always wanted a new iPad.
Is the new iPad.
I don't want the old. Which one's the old iPad? The iPad 2 or the new iPad? I don't know. I'm really confused.
How can you be?
I'm going to go buy an Android tablet.
How can you be
Who's
confused
on first,
about
Will?
which one is the newer one?
Can I buy the iPad 4S
or the other one?
I hear it has 4G.
Yeah, I like.
Does
4G.
it have all 4Gs?
4G sounds better than 3Gs.
But the iPhone 4S, S is higher in the alphabet.
How many 1080p's does it have?
So when I was buying my iPads, because Gina's been using an iPad 1 for the last 2 years and is feeling, as she says, as she drops it 3 times in the last week, the iPad, it can tell it's time. as they present you, like you go through the ordering processes. Which one do you want? What color? What size? Do you want 4G? Do you don't want 4G? And then you hit the button. It goes over to the, hey, let's get this custom engraved page. And I was looking at it and I thought, oh man, I'm going to do something really dumb. I'm going to get them engraved with mine and yours.
His and hers iPads.
No, mine and yours.
Okay.
So then it's, oh, do you have my iPad? No, I have yours. And you know, and
You're like, who's on first base?
I figured we could do
no.
that for a year or maybe 2,
Brilliant.
and it would continue to be funny.
Brilliant.
But then I realized if she didn't actually want the white one, then we wouldn't be able to return it. So
Now, Brad
I
makes a good
punted on
point
that.
about the box being the same because the box just says iPad. So if someone gave you an iPad or gave a lucky child an iPad and they received the box, and maybe it's a tech-savvy kid, right? And they're unwrapping the present, and it's iPad. Oh, it's an iPad. It's a white one.
Oh, that's so mean.
And it looks exactly the same. They wouldn't know until they powered it on.
There's going to be there'll be some differentiation on the box.
If you were a kid and you were given a new iPad and you get angry that it's the old one,
I can't wait for those tweets.
Christmas is going to be
Cannot
awesome.
wait.
You are terrible.
I turned on my new iPad. Oh my god, only 1024/768. I hate you, Mom.
So one of the things I heard, I think this Jackie from Ars Technica said this, but they weren't allowing people to do side-by-side shots in the product testing area with the iPad 2. And the excuse was they were afraid somebody would swap out an iPad 2 for an iPad 3 because they look so much alike.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it seems like they don't want pictures of how much fatter it is and how much heavier it is compared to the old one.
Yeah, because the picture's going to show you how much heavier it is.
Yeah, and you're also able to see the bezels are less gently
Wow, that looks
curved
much
and all that
heavier in
stuff.
that picture.
Yeah. Well, people bring scales. You have no idea. Like, dudes bring, like, little drug scales and put them out, or what I use for a coffee scale.
But they've already told you
weigh
how
the
much
things.
heavier it is and
It's
how
always
much
good
thicker
to
it is. So,
confirm.
all right.
Always good to confirm.
Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about software a little bit. They pushed iPhoto really hard. There's HD updates coming from all of the core Apple apps, the iWork stuff, the word processor, the spreadsheet, the presentation tool. All will get Retina upgrades. Same thing for GarageBand, iMovie. I think those are already out.
And those are free updates.
Those are free
for
updates.
people who have the app.
Yep.
And then iPhoto is a $5.99 new
$4.99.
app. Sorry, $4.99. $5.
Universal app for iPhone and iPad.
Right.
I am shocked that iPhoto is a separate app.
It's
and
not replacing Photos.
It's not replacing.
That's
the
interesting.
Photos.
Well, Photos is just a viewer, right? And iPhoto is where you go and do your editing.
Photos is preview.
Crappy ass viewer.
Right. Well, maybe iPhoto is going to replace it ultimately.
The camera roll Photos has your albums, right? Your photo stream, your camera roll, and whatever photos folders you created in iTunes, and that's it. There's no sorting. There's no grouping. Nothing. iPhoto has some of that, but I don't know how tightly integrated that's going to be with all the photo data because there's no file structure access. And whether that's going to have its own memory cache when you put that in iTunes. And they're really selling that as a like a Photoshop competitor. And
yeah.
We ran
Photoshop.
It's
like a Photoshop Elements competitor.
Yeah. To tweak your photos. It's the enhanced
library and tweak.
Take out Red Eye, stuff like that.
Yeah, which stuff that's not really even in iPhoto for Mac.
Yeah, it is.
Well, who uses
crop
that?
and red eye and image adjust and all that. It's what my parents.
It's like Photoshop for moms, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
It's like if you want to crop out the picture of the dog, like the dog's tail is in the picture, you just boom, it's gone. They're missing, like, if they were smart, what they would do. I mean, Adobe's obviously never going to do this. Is they'd license the context-aware clone and clean up stuff. And
I don't think they could do that.
If you could put that in iPhoto, it would be an amazing app for normal people. But that's what Photoshop Touch is going to have, obviously, in the future. We have a quick look at that coming up on the site soon. That iPhoto demo is the most skeuomorphic thing they've done so far. I find it reprehensible.
I didn't see that part.
So
there's brushes.
For editing your photos in this new iPhoto app, you press a button and literally, like, I think 8 virtual brushes pop
fan
up.
of brushes.
I did see that.
It is a fan of brushes from the bottom. It's like a claw of brushes. And
when are they going to get past this era in their design history?
It's
terrible.
They're not going to. And the brushes don't even make sense. Like, for example, to increase contrast is a brush where the brushes look like they're rainbow colored. And then to mute colors, it is a brush that looks grayscale.
Well, and the dopey thing about that is they're being skeuomorphic about something that the audience for this app has no sense of context for. because my mom has never picked up a darkening brush for a manual photo retouching in her life, and that's what they're expecting this to convey to her, and it's just stupid on like 15 different levels.
Now that's not saying that the way Adobe does it with their
Adobe's way is dumb too.
Menus, that's not the easiest way either, because the first time using even someone who's used Photoshop on desktop on the app, getting around the menus and stuff is confusing as hell. But the skeuomorphic design, it's a waste of space.
It's pandering and dopey. But we've talked about skeuomorphic stuff a lot in the past. I'm not going to get into that.
Was that it for iPhoto? Was the main software
they
update?
Talked
was
about
a
iPhoto
big new piece of software.
Yeah.
Like there was a litany of discussion.
And again, that's
iPhoto.
all. I think it's all aimed at making the iPad like a one-stop. You can take a decent picture now and work with it and create something.
Right. I mean,
there was like a photo album type of feature that they added,
have a Flipboard style arrangement of photos, and you can export that.
I wonder if all that stuff is going to sync with desktop iMac on through iCloud. They also announced galleries that you can publish through iCloud.
Yep, and you can view them online.
Yeah, then you can send a link to somebody and they can go see it in a normal browser, which is good.
Your journals and stuff. So that's getting better. Like iCloud is a good service right now, but the inability to access the content from web browser makes it terrible. And that's why I still use Google for Google Docs and a lot of the image stuff.
I think it's interesting that they didn't announce any kind of social aspect to the iCloud service, because this is the place to do it. If you wanted to say, hey, this is the gallery of the kid, your kid's born, you share a gallery with your parents who are in England, and say and want to give them access to that so they can just see any new pictures of the kid anytime they come in, or have them pop up on their Apple TV or whatever.
So I don't think
this is the time to talk about that stuff. And they
or the next iOS update.
Well, it could be the iOS 6.
Because the only system level integration is Twitter right now, and Twitter isn't a great place to share photo albums.
No. Yeah, that would be a great feature if I could take pictures and just push them to my parents' iPad or Apple TV or whatever, so you just see it next time they turn it on. That would be great.
Social galleries, basically. It's what Flickr has done for years, and Picasa does that. I think. Can you do galleries per? I think you can. You can limit galleries to specific people on Picasa as well. Yeah. So I mean, I don't think
Apple
really
wants to put their eggs in any social networks basket. They don't want to do their own, because the last one they did didn't do well. Ping. Exactly.
I got a friend request on Ping the other day.
Oh, no.
It's the first one
I didn't
ever.
know it was still in operation.
Yeah, I was stunned. I was like, oh, Ping email. I haven't seen this in 2 years.
So
awesome.
They're probably just waiting for that landscape to settle and then finding a way to communicate that, because they don't want to overwhelm people. Well, they could easily overwhelm people.
And in fairness, that's one of those things that if they fuck up and like you accidentally publish the pictures of your naked pictures of your wife, and that story gets in the national news, and bad things, man, bad things. So yeah, that's all the iPad stuff. It's March 16th.
That's
starting
$1
at $500.
Now that's also surprising, because we're talking about 9 days since the announcement.
This is faster than traditionally they can get radios through the FCC.
Much faster.
Are they? I've wondered this for years. Are they essentially getting special treatment from the FCC to pull this timeline off?
I do not know enough to say, but nobody else.
Because the first iPhone was like 3 months or something, right? It was like
but they didn't care about that because they didn't have a product in the marketplace. Because remember, the moment they announce something, the other one, the bottom falls out of.
Right.
So and FCC has wasted no time. Has announced that they've approved the iPad 3.
Oh, how amazing!
So however they're doing it, it's great, right? Because for people like us, as soon as they announce it, the window between knowing what it's going to be and being able to get your hands on it can be agony if it's a long, long time. So the fact that they've only got to wait a week that's pretty good.
Oh, that's FCC has photos of the guts of the iPad 3 already.
I find that it's much worse when it's a product that's new and you don't have it all than if it's something that you already have and it's an upgrade in between. Like I remember when the iPhone, when I smashed my iPhone and I was waiting for the iPhone 3GS to come out, the 2 months between the announcement and release of the iPhone 3GS and when I dropped my iPhone on the way to E3 were real bad. Like that was a dark time for me.
But we all managed to get our orders in, right?
Yeah, my hand was in the air.
Yeah. I got mine in just right at the last second.
Hey, you're welcome, man.
I had three.
I'm glad I was able to help.
3 browsers open. I was trying to get in on the phone app, and then I finally got my order through right at the last second.
This is sad.
Was this? Aside from being people who obviously are interested in Apple products and having the latest technology, is this a product that normal people are going to want to pre-order immediately?
I don't think anybody should ever pre-order anything. I mean, if you have a limited amount of money to spend on stuff like this a year,
Mass Effect 3.
if you have a limited amount of money that you want to spend on stuff like this a year, you're much better off waiting for people to actually do real reviews and not the bullshit that happens today.
I mean, let
me say this.
Do you think there's a reasonable chance that the reviews are going to come in and announce
you never
that
know.
it sucks?
But it's usually okay.
You have a 30-day
iPhone
return
4
policy.
was the
up
15-day
until the iPhone 4, I would have felt totally comfortable buying an Apple product sight unseen, but when the antenna stuff happened with that was the moment that I was like, all right,
from now
on,
there could be big problems with the panel.
From now on, or maybe this thing gets super hot. Who knows? Like,
right.
I'm going to wait and see what people say about it.
Or the battery explodes.
Right.
I mean, if the first person who puts out on the plane burns down to the inside of a plane because the 40 watt-hour battery lets loose, I mean, that's real bad. There's a lot of bad shit that can happen with a new launch, especially when they're rolling them out of sweatshops in China as fast as they possibly can.
So how do you? So is this like a do as I say, not as I do type situation?
Well, if we don't cover it on day one, then we've missed the big tech story.
But you didn't need to buy one for you and Gina in order to do that, right?
She's on my ass about it.
Okay.
So. I mean, she's been pissed off that I didn't get her an iPad 2 for a year now. So this is a marital harmony situation.
Norm skipped the iPad 2, so he gets that double bump bonus, which is always nice.
And I got one for my parents.
When you jump 2 generations, you really see the difference.
Traditionally, they've made it good when they fucked up. That's the nice thing about Apple. Sometimes it takes them longer than it should. Sometimes it takes them an entire generation and they have to release a new product. But for the most part, they've done right.
Now, one of the things I was talking to with Brad before we started, because Brad has yet to jump into the iPad universe. You're considering it this time, but we also talked about like maybe just getting an iPad 2 on the cheap. What's interesting is the iPad 2 obviously did very, very well.
Yeah.
Even though it was really just it wasn't a big bump up from the first one. It was the same display. It was a slimmer form factor. It was faster or whatever, but it wasn't a big deal. Like again, Norm, you felt like you didn't need to jump to the 2.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the case this time. I think when people see the 2 and the 3 next to each other and see that display, the 2 is not going to be good enough.
Well,
right?
I think it depends on how you use it. I think if you're watching video on the iPad, the 2's probably fine. If your primary use is watching shit on Netflix and TV and video, you're not going to notice a difference because it's just going to be the same upscaled 720p content.
Right.
Might even look worse on the big display. If your primary use is reading, huge improvements come. I mean, because Kindle app, assuming Amazon's on point, Kindle app should update on day 0 and look instantly better.
I'm just saying,
because it's just a font.
You're
it's
right.
A vector.
People use the iPad for different things, but I'm saying that in the main, this is a more compelling upgrade than the 2 was over the 1.
I definitely think so.
When you AirPlay your new iPad to a 1080p TV, it's going to downscale quite a bit.
Yeah, you lose a lot of resolution.
Yeah.
Another consideration is just basic compatibility. Like what percentage of the new apps over the course of the next year do you see being exclusive to the iPad 3?
In the first 3 months, probably 20%. In the first 3 months, there'll be a dozen high-profile things that are iPad 3 exclusive. And they'll probably have scaled-down versions, or it will scale down automatically for lesser iPads. And that'll change. And probably won't be... You won't have a majority of exclusive stuff for a year and a half.
It
seems like people are on a 2-year cycle.
So that's not really a consideration.
No,
then. Okay.
I wouldn't worry about that. What I would worry about more is that there will be... I think you're probably fine. I mean, I think an iPad 2 is a perfectly capable device still.
I don't think I'm going to get a 2.
I don't think
that seems silly.
When you're talking about something that has a yearly upgrade cycle and the price difference is $100, and that, I mean, if you use it like me, you use it every single day, multiple times. I can't imagine not spending the extra $100.
And again, for people for whom price is an issue, I mean, that's why they're keeping it around. We talked about this before, that it makes sense for Apple to, although you said, Apple never does low cost, low end products, they clearly are now protecting their flank, their rear end,
Gary,
by keeping this lower cost option.
We're not that part of this podcast
until
yet.
we get to that part of the podcast.
Me either. Let's get to it.
No, it's really exciting. We got to talk about Apple TV first.
Do you want to do Apple TV first?
This is another place that I was right.
Okay. Apple Care. Now they have Apple Care Plus for iPad, which means you can pay the additional Apple Care
$99,
$99 Apple Care Plus, so that if you accidentally break the screen of your iPad, you can pay a very minimal fee to get that replaced.
I do not think that Apple Care is worth it for the iPad. It's a much sturdier
on
device than the iPhone.
On a Mac, you got to get it. Everything else, I don't bother.
Right. I do it on iPhone sometimes, depending if I think I'm going to keep it for 2 years.
All right.
The tablet landscape is obviously different now. Amazon was buying up iPad 2s and iPad 1s up until today's announcement. They still might be doing it now, and they're offering decent prices.
What are the prices?
It was like $200 off. It was still...
That's not too bad.
Yeah. It's still under what like Apple's selling a refurb Apple II for right now. iPad 2 for right now. You can get an iPad 1 if you just want an iOS device, and it's fine for reading. I still use it every day to read the web. You can get that for fairly cheap, like a 16 gig Wi-Fi iPad 1. Not everyone needs the iPad 2 or the new iPad. It's funny, during this podcast, I got an email from Samsung saying, you may have heard the iPad, and Apple announced a new iPad.
Oh, really?
And we wanted to make sure that you didn't forget about us at our Galaxy Note 10.1 announced at Mobile World Congress, and they included a handy chart to compare the Samsung Galaxy Note 10.1 versus the new Apple iPad.
Do you think they had that chart with one blank column just ready to go this morning, just waiting to type specs into it and send it out?
Yeah, it was
those poor bastards.
and the chart is very telling, obviously, because it's a content creation comparison grid. And the things they list: can you view 2 apps at the same time? Yes, on the Galaxy Note 10.1. No, on Apple's new iPad. But yes has a parentheses, only if the apps are optimized for simultaneous viewing. Same for working with the 2 apps side by side. Is your tablet optimized for precision writing and drawing with the Galaxy Tab?
This
Galaxy
is terrible.
Note 10.1.
Why are we giving this time?
Just as long as the
It's
final entry at the bottom is, do you actually want this product? And yes, iPad, no, Galaxy Note.
Well, it was interesting because Tim Cook specifically called out shitty Android upscaled tablet apps.
He did.
On
he
the
went
stage.
out. He shots fired.
They never do that. They hardly ever do that. They showed a screenshot and everything, and he showed, I think, a Galaxy Note with the Android app scaled up and the Twitter app, Android Twitter app scaled up.
Yeah.
And literally in one screen reminded me why I stopped using Android phones, except for when I'm reviewing something, and it's because the Twitter apps always suck and they don't look right.
Right.
Even if you want to use like a stylus, if you want precision.
Hold on, just to be clear, I'm not saying the Twitter apps are bad. I'm saying the iOS Twitter apps are much, much better. And if you think an Android Twitter app's good, I don't think any less of you. There's nothing wrong with you.
That's more a fault of the developer than the platform.
It's part of the developer and the platform. The fault of the platform is that they do a bad job
giving the SDK,
giving SDK tools and setting rules for tablet apps versus,
for example,
phone apps.
Like Path on Android is just as good as Path on iOS.
That's great.
And so I think Tim Cook
Path
saying
is your Twitter client of choice.
That was more of a knock on developers and how much effort they're putting on Android.
No, it's a knock on Android because Android builds when you talk to Android developers, one of the common threads is people who develop for both platforms always say the iOS tools are better. They all bitch about the App Store policies and the arbitrary dismissals and all that stuff, but iOS SDK is easier to install, easier to set up, has better stock art, has better default tools. Like getting Eclipse installed on a machine, if you don't know how to install Eclipse and get the Android SDK on a machine, it's a fucking all-day affair. I mean, I'm not a developer, so maybe I'm just mentally challenged.
Yes.
But it is a hard thing to do.
Yep.
Like, I was really pleased with myself when I got the Eclipse and the SDK stuff installed.
So
I'm a relatively smart
I just got
person.
my order confirmation from Apple.
You want to do that high five?
No, let's not ever do that again.
right over the table.
This is why
Never.
what it is it.
Yeah, that's why we need to do that.
Yeah.
Are we moving off iPad here?
one more thing.
Voice of the people, Brad Shoemaker.
I have
this
Go
iPad
ahead.
announcement is just further proof that Apple is doing what they think is right. They're not going to cede to any of the critics saying, tablets need to have USB hosts, they need to have SD card slots, even though
Flash.
I would love, definitely not Flash. There's no mobile
saying they
flash
do it
support.
their way?
I would love for an iPad to have a built-in SD card slot.
Right. And then, of course, the other big thing is, at least not today, no concession to 7-inch form factor or anything like that. No iPad mini, none of that.
Yeah, so the principles that
with what they know.
they stand by.
Fuck you, Kindle Fire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Brad, your voice of the people?
I have one more question.
Okay.
A little bit of a derail, kind of a long-term strategy thing, but it only makes sense to ask it here. The inclusion of LTE in this thing.
Yeah.
Does that guarantee an LTE iPhone as the next iPhone?
Yes, I believe it does.
There's no way they don't put it in the next iPhone.
There's no way there's no way, and I'll go out on the longest limb you have, and I think these guys would be right there.
There's no
There's
limb.
no way the next iPhone does not have LTE.
Right. The thing is, the modems are right now. That Qualcomm modem has power consumption that's right. Performance, it's good.
Chipsets are integrated, et cetera,
Yeah,
et cetera. Do you think that happens this year?
I think we might even see a new body style to accommodate a bigger battery to make it work right.
Kindle Fire or refurb iPad 1 16 gig for $260.
I'd buy that $100 Android tablet that you sent me the link to.
Oh my God, we bought that $100 Android tablet.
I have a $100 touchpad. I was thinking about putting an ice cream sandwich on.
I do that.
That's
heartbeat.
I should do that.
So, do we want to just talk about general like reactions and overall prognosis for iPad 3 before we get on to
I don't think we need to. They're going to sell a fuckload of them. I mean,
our reactions,
be a
personal
healthy
reactions.
business.
We all three of us bought them. We all got Wi-Fi versions. None of us bought 4G version.
we all bought 32 gig white Wi-Fi.
32
I got
gig Wi-Fi is the
32
sweet spot.
32
I think all three of us
Wi-Fi.
for ourselves bought 32 gig
Yeah.
white
All right.
iPads.
That's what I was. If I go
And
in,
then you
that's
got
probably
for
what I'll get.
Gina.
32 gig white iPad.
Oh, really? You
Same
bought
thing.
exactly the same thing?
Yeah, that's why I was
Yeah.
going to do yours and mine, so we can tell them
Wow.
apart.
Okay.
I mean, my process was I actually looked at my iPad 2 before I made my order, and I've only got 10 gigs worth of stuff on my iPad, so I could have gone with 16. But again, you don't want to be pushing up against the ceiling.
And with 1080p video from the iTunes store and the bigger camera, you want a little headroom.
That'll fill up space
Absolutely.
quick,
32. The apps are going to be bigger as well because they're dealing with more intensive graphics and stuff. So 32 gig, I think, is the sweet spot. Better resale value that way. Also, again, don't need Wi-Fi because I have my little MiFi 4G gadget.
I don't
to go
think.
with
I mean,
it.
normal people, if you use your iPad at home or at work, you probably don't need the 4G. If you travel a lot,
for the majority of people,
you
it's
know if
Wi-Fi.
you need it.
Again, some people that travel a lot will know that they need it.
don't buy it because you think you might need
Yeah.
it one day because you're never going to use it.
And I went white because I feel like it's time for try something change. Didn't get the white 4S. I'll get this one white. And also, I'm actually going to keep the old iPad 2 around as like the family kid iPad, and so it'd be nice to be able to spot the difference easily.
As somebody who had a black iPad 1 and a white iPad 2, and I spend most of my time on the iPad reading, white iPad makes a lot of sense.
I was going to ask if there's actually a practical difference in terms
Well,
of like
I had
contrast. Contrast between screen and border.
I
Is
had
there-
someone telling
yeah.
me not to get it for that reason, but I double checked with Will, and he was happy. So why not?
So wait, which one is ideal to you guys?
If you read, get the white one. If you watch video, get the black one.
Yeah, I read more, so I
if you
think
do both.
Then
Web
then-
pages. What are the
Then-
web pages
then
that you
go which
frequent
way the
most?
one
Are
looks
they
better
light
to
background
you.
or dark background?
Yeah.
Well, I work on a black one.
But you can flip it to the white.
That's true.
Yeah. It's. I mean.
Background on Reddit is white.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see white all the way. No, I mean it's a personal choice. Get what you think looks
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
But I personally, on a very personal note, I like the white on white for.
And again, on a
texturing.
completely tech hipster kind of douchebag scale, it differentiates itself, and you feel like you've got the new one rather than just the thing that looks the same as the old
Right.
one.
The bummer for me is that Gina's called dibs on orange smart cover.
Oh,
so
that goes great with the white.
I know, which I've had for the last year and I love, but she likes orange a lot.
That's true.
Marital
I think
harmony.
I'm gonna
That's
go
the
with
soft
that.
serve ice creams combo.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
creamsicle.
Yeah, it is
so
creamsicle,
I'm gonna
yeah.
have to change. I'm gonna
Those,
either get blue or
No,
maybe
no.
go leather.
I
Those
like the
fluorescent
red
ones,
one.
those fluorescent colors do match much better with the white.
Yeah.
The red smart cover. The
The red leather or the,
The
red,
red
the
leather.
red
product,
plastic?
product red
Product
one?
red
yeah,
one.
I think I'm going to
That's
match the
that's
product red
the
cover
nice
with the
one.
white one.
Oh, I might do that.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say is that the polyurethane covers, if you're buying a new iPad, do not hold up very well.
Right. No,
Like
I saw
after a
yours.
year
It's
of use,
filthy.
it looks like shit.
Yeah, the leather ones, that's the way to go.
Yeah, they just get dirty. The inner lining gets a lot of fingerprints and stuff on it. I'm not particularly easy on devices. I tend to use them.
I've been noticing your phone has been screened down on the table over there.
screen up.
Now it is. But
So, like, here's the
most
thing.
Of the podcast,
Screen
it
down
was-
safe.
Yeah.
The
What's on the table? It's not like there's sand or grit or something.
Yeah,
over
this is
there.
only the finest shitty IKEA unfinished
Hey, man.
wood.
before we get actually into the scoreboard, the one prediction that I do want to kind of recant, which is not specifically an iPad.
too late. You can't recant now.
Just let me finish. It's not an iPad prediction. It was something else, but the iPad affects it. I had been saying for a while that I've been waiting for the tablet market. You know, people say there's no tablet market, there's an iPad market. Right, okay, so we need other tablets to come in and make it competitive. And I've been saying, like, I feel like 2012 is finally going to be the year where other tablets, like Kindle Fire's made a dent. You know, maybe there's going to be the Android tablets that are starting to get really interesting. 2012 is going to be the year where Apple sees real competition.
Windows 8 tablets too.
Right, of course,
That's
Windows 8
coming.
tablets as well is a big deal. But having said all that,
Do you want me to read the tweet?
just wait a second. having said all of that, seeing the iPad 3 now, I totally
seeing the
recant
iPad
that.
3 through your screen,
The
not in person yet.
2012 is not going to be competitive. Apple has just fucking slammed the door in the face of every other person.
Now,
I would rather.
You
be in the-
workshopped
I
this
would rather be
earlier.
in the business of exporting sand to Saudi
Oh
Arabia.
boy, that's racist.
Selling ice cream in the North Pole.
Pick your point, whichever one you want to go with.
Right.
I would rather do that.
Selling smart water in Atlantis.
I would rather try to sell.
Fiji
I would
water to
rather try to
Fijians?
sell a Keurig coffee machine to Will
That's not going to happen.
than I would Than I would be in the business of trying to sell an iPad.
You were
Rush
so
Limbaugh a
pumped
Prius.
up this morning, at least over Twitter. I could visualize you
He was
putting
worse
on
I am.
your armor.
Bring on the haters and the trolls. I don't give a fuck.
No.
Bring it all on.
Bashing your shield.
Bring it all on.
Ready to take on all comers.
The opinions of Gary Whitta are Gary Whitta's solely, not the opinions of This Is Only a Test.
It's a fantastic upgrade. And I'm going by. You look at there are typical haters out there. I was on a couple of message boards this morning where it's always like, oh, they didn't do this, or they disappointed me on this. That there was very little of that today because they pretty much delivered on all the things that people were hoping for. We wanted Retina, we wanted 4G,
surprises.
we got all the things that we wanted. The only stuff we didn't get was the out there shit that people were talking about, haptic and stuff. That was never really going to happen.
So no surprises. People are happy with no surprises because the expectations were so high.
Everything is wonderful.
Because remember, last year
everybody's happy
with the iPad 2,
well,
we're talking about 2010 winter. We were still hoping for a 2004 Retina display iPad 2. That never happened. Look, you're usually kind of the more sober, critical one that doesn't get carried away with this stuff. I mean, is there any way where you feel like they fucked up or they could have done more?
My thing is always, I haven't seen the screen yet, so my opinion may change and I may lose all bowel control the moment I see the screen. But my feeling is, like the way I use the iPad, I'd rather have it light enough that you can hold it in one hand comfortably than have more weight and higher resolution screen.
And you mean under a pound?
I mean under a pound.
Wait, so you're actually saying that you think it would have been better if they'd kept the screen the same but taken a few ounces off it?
I'm
so
not
a 7-inch
saying
tablet?
I'm not saying for the mass market. I'm saying what I personally would have rather seen is a lighter 10-inch tablet under a pound, comfortable for one hand.
As someone who can't even curl a barbell three
Fuck
times,
off.
I get your concern. I understand your concern.
Grip the bezel with your thumb. You can't hold the bezel with your thumb at a pound and 3 ounces.
Delicate wrist
because it's too heavy. I mean, you're a fucking asshole. But the point is, it's not ergonomic. It's ergonomically too heavy to hold with one hand.
You're absolutely right.
You rest it on your lap.
They need to make it lighter.
Right. Lighter is better. Going up in weight is not the correct direction.
Well, again, I think I'm going to be right in saying that when you do the two together, you're not going to notice any. In practical terms, the weight stays.
Jackie at ours said she immediately noticed when she picked it up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, if you're coming from an iPad 1 that weighed 1.5 pounds and probably had a case on it,
right,
you're going to think this weighs a shitload less than the iPad 1.
And I think the majority of people that are going to be upgrading are probably coming from the 1 rather than the 2. Yeah, that would be my guess.
The important thing to note, as somebody who fucked up his elbow earlier this year by holding the iPad like this, tucked up under your arm, is you rest it in your lap or you rest it in the crook of your arm. You do not grip it.
That's what I do.
You hold by the corner.
Do not hold by the corner.
I love holding by the corner.
The doctor explicitly told me, do not hold by the corner.
I typically sit with it.
Elbow.
I sit with it on my lap, on my knee, or like on my belly. You know, if I'm like laying back on the couch or in the bed or whatever.
That's the one problem with getting thin.
I'm very rarely like bearing the weight of it, like walking around with it. You know,
right.
I mean, people are going to do that, absolutely.
Right.
But for my couch use, I don't really. The weight's not really a factor.
The problem I have is my vision's a little bit bad, so the lap is a little bit too far away. I'm hoping with the new high resolution screen, that's going to improve. I'm hoping that we'll see things differently that way.
Right.
My disappointment.
So yeah, that's my big. And I think that's minor disappointment. I think this is a decision that everybody's going to be really stoked about, and people can. The important thing is that people can look at it and see a market improvement. Just in the screen. I mean, you remember the jump from 3GS
that's going to be
to 4
the sex. The sex factor is going to be you walk in and you see it and you go, oh shit, the same way you did with the iPhone 4.
Right now they're on a sales growth curve. Last quarter they sold as many iPad 2s as they sold in the first year of iPad, as they sold of iPad 1s.
And to my point, what do you think this means for the tablet market as a whole? Do you think this is going to solidify Android? Yeah, okay.
I mean, those guys are completely they're.
The fucking forums are going to be great this week.
No, listen.
I can't wait to get on there.
Listen, the Tim Cook, the app thing that Tim Cook talked about at the very beginning.
Can we actually call this podcast "Android's Fucked"?
No, we're not going to call it that. We're gonna call it "Resolutionary" because that's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever seen. Did you see that?
What?
Yeah,
they're calling
Resolutionary.
Oh my god!
Who said that?
Apple.
It's on the iPad page.
No one actually said
line.
the word. But on the page, the big tagline is that this iPad,
with the iPad splash screen, it says resolutionary.
Resolutionary.
I don't want to buy one anymore.
Yeah, I don't want to support them at all. Look right there, you can see it.
It's
gross.
beautiful. It's
terrible.
That is
Deal
filthy.
with it.
So hold on. I don't remember what I was going to say.
The point I'm making is this to me
Android's fucked.
This to me solidifies Apple's continued dominance over the next year. I don't think that anyone's going to be able to compete with
Nothing
this.
we've seen from Ice Cream Sandwich is going to challenge.
What about Windows 8? What about the Windows 8 tablets?
Sandwich tablet.
Right. Well, the fundamental problem with what they're doing with Android right now is that the apps are bad. I mean, I every 2 months I go into the Android marketplace and I look to see what's there, and the top 5 things are all super fuggo kind of garbage, probably really useful, but they're not the kind of thing that my mom's going to ever use, right? And that's what Android needs if they want to have mainstream acceptance beyond the people who buy a phone and use it as a phone and a calendar and never go buy apps and never, like, the reason iOS is doing so well is because there's a robust, vibrant, really healthy, occasionally fucked up and bad, but there's a lot of people buying shit in that app store.
25 billion downloads.
Right. There's not 25 billion purchases on the Android marketplace.
And what do you think this is going to mean for Windows 8 tablets trying to roll out this year?
I have no idea. It's too soon to say.
I'm guessing there aren't too many fucking conga lines at Microsoft today.
They're
not like, oh, well, that's a relief.
The
Well, you know what? I would say yes. I would counter that, because my biggest disappointment in the iPad, at least for now, because I'm sure this could change over the summer, is that they didn't make any major iOS updates. Yeah. And a lot of the software stuff, interface stuff that I want changed in iPad, improved in iPad,
right,
stuff that we've asked for a long time, like, you know, user accounts, that kind of stuff.
Right, but we
know
that
could come at WWDC.
Nobody,
we know what the calendar is. That comes with the iPhone, so it'll come with the iPhone in a few months, and
they'll announce at WWDC.
We'll go to 6 on the iPad as well.
And so we're expecting that you'll get the mid cycle upgrade,
right,
software upgrade for the iPad. That's all the software stuff, and I think Microsoft is happy because they all expected high resolution screen. They expected from a hardware perspective. They don't control hardware. Microsoft doesn't, because they work with partners. Apple has supply chain locked down, but what they do control is software, and they've been developing Windows 8 as a tablet OS to do everything that they think people want to do that they can't do on the iPad.
Right. So the question, like the moment, the shitting bricks moment in Redmond is going to be if they announce with iOS 6, if Apple announces with iOS 6 good ways to share files between applications that don't necessarily rely on specific file associations or using camera roll and stuff like that. Right now, Microsoft sees its competitive advantage as this is a tablet skin on a desktop OS. There's access to File Manager. If you need to, you can plug in a keyboard and mouse and use it like a real PC.
Right.
Apple's never going to do that. But if they fix some of those pain points on iOS with iOS 6, then who knows? And that's the moment of fear for them.
I'm gonna do it though. I'm gonna make the prediction that we will be back here a year from now talking about the launch of the new iPad, and we will still be in a market situation where a real viable competitor has not emerged.
That would be terrifying.
Somebody writing this stuff.
That's real bad. Like, if there's no viable competitor to Android, to iOS, to Apple, it's super bad. Like, there needs to be a competitor.
Do you have trouble believing it though?
No, I think you're absolutely right. Windows 8 is a toss-up. I think it's 50-50. I
think the only way to do it is the only way it's going to happen, because the Fire is kind of an outlier. I think the Fire has been successful in its own way. It is kind of only a pseudo Android tablet. There will be another one, and I think Amazon are on a good thing there. The only way there's going to be a viable Android tablet competitor to Apple in the next 12 months is if Google does a true Nexus tablet with ice cream sandwich and all the bells and whistles.
Even if the hardware and the OS are good, the software ecosystem's not there. And that's the differentiator.
Right.
Like, Tim Cook stood on the stage and said, hey, look, Google, if you want to make something that competes with us, you need to make people make apps that are good.
The app support is everything.
Right. That's the big thing.
And it's not like you go to Android Market and it's a ghost town. There's plenty of stuff there. It's just not as good.
This is also a great time to introduce a new policy I have of just blocking anyone who accuses me of being a fanboy on Twitter.
I do that every day.
Right. I haven't done that up until this point.
You got some fanboys in there?
I usually have conversations, but I'm tired of it. I don't have the energy for it anymore. So I'm just blocking.
I blocked some fools this week.
Something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Hey, let's go to the scorecard.
No. Before we do that, let's do Apple TV.
Wait,
scorecard is what we're testing.
Last quick iPad question, I swear.
You said the last one was the last one,
this
Brad.
Is absolutely the last one.
Don't you have to go to the bathroom or something?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I have a bunch
Don't
of
break the
questions.
seal.
I have a bunch of questions to expunge.
Okay. Expunge the questions.
I need to void my head.
Questions.
Questions.
Expel that doubt.
Based on recent history, how long until somebody can just walk into the Apple Store, or Best Buy, or whatever, and have their pick of all the SKUs?
2 weeks.
Really?
2 weeks after the
stock will just be there.
No.
I don't know.
A month.
I think
bad.
this one's going to be worse. This is the worst I've ever seen the Apple site jammed up, the online store. It's the hardest time I've ever had getting through. I think the lines are going to be
Anecdote.
The lines are going to be super long, And my guess would be if you don't get in the line on Friday morning and get in on that first shipment, you're probably looking at April.
They'll have new shipments every day. If you get in line in the morning and you're the first dude there at 6 o'clock in the morning,
right? But he's talking about sauntering into a store.
So
that's going to be
maybe April.
Yeah.
Okay.
A month.
I can deal with that.
So are you gonna? What are you doing? Are you gonna pull the trigger? What are you thinking?
No, I'm gonna.
You're gonna wait.
Yeah,
You're
wait
gonna
and see how people feel about it.
Brad's much more stoic about this.
He's
sort
a
of stuff than we
responsible
are.
consumer.
Yeah.
I do that for video
I'm
games.
a simple man with simple needs.
Yeah.
Like a 2048 by 1500.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, you need the fastest tablet. Yeah, okay. Apple TV. This was. I was surprised that they led with this, but it kind of makes sense.
I'm glad they did this.
It makes sense that they pair it with the iPad launch because those two things actually go great
they
together.
complement each other wonderfully.
It's A5, not A5X CPU.
Right.
Basically the same thing we have now. There's a new UI, streamlined. The UI looks much more appy.
Now, does this UI get passed down to current Apple TVs?
It is coming down to current Apple TVs.
Yeah.
The photo stream sharing, which is the other big feature, is unclear whether that's coming to Apple TVs. The people...
I already have photo stream on my Apple TV.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I don't understand.
You're probably sharing it from your iMac or something.
No. You have PhotoStream, like you can access.
Yeah,
it.
I don't know why they. I didn't understand what they were selling today because I have PhotoStream on my Apple TV.
I never look in the photos.
Okay, I turned mine on. I have it.
Okay.
I made it my screensaver so all my photos just float by.
My screensaver still corgi puppies.
So the big
really
yeah Flickr search.
I love that. The Flickr search hack is my favorite thing.
It's not even a hack; it's built in.
But I mean, making that the screensaver is a little tricky.
So it's good that they are upgrading the UI for legacy users as well. And I think Will is right that you look at the layout. I don't know if you've seen it, but the little chiclets and everything, little icons. Definitely,
there's going to be.
It feels like a step towards it being app.
It's 16 by 9 icons.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally we are one step away.
The little Jolly Rancher icons are there.
So what I hope for this Apple TV, because they're keeping it the same price, $99. The big boost, because the UI is going to get passed down, is that it's 1080p output, which the existing Apple TV can do if you jailbreak it and you put SBMC on there. It's not fast. And I've always complained that the Apple TV interface has been slow. There's a noticeable delay when you hit up, down, left, right on the remote. I just hope that's much faster.
So the processor hopefully will deal with that as well. It's going to be nice. If you've got a big TV like some of the guys here in this room. 720p feels like you're not really getting your money's worth out of the TV, but now hopefully 1080p. All the movie downloads in the Apple Store will be 1080p. That'll be nice.
I really hope that they let you choose which version you get, because if you shot a lot of 1080p video on your iPhone 4S, you know the difference in size on files. It's a significant increase in file size. So I'm already
for people that have like data caps and stuff.
Dude, I'm at 200 gigs of my 250 gigs pretty much every month.
They will not give you that option.
Right, they will automatically bump down to 720p when your connection's slow.
Yeah, but you won't have an option of downloading a 720p.
Well, or you'll set it universally in the store. Because you can do that now. You can say
that one time.
I want all standard def TV shows.
Right.
Which is a perfectly normal setting.
I will not be buying the new Apple TV.
I already ordered one.
I will.
But I'm gonna
because you have a use for your old one.
Well, I love it, and also I use the Apple TV a lot, and I'm just going to take, especially since the old one's getting the firmware update. Yeah. I'm going to take that upstairs, put it in the bedroom. Well, exactly. Just use it as a Netflix.
You have a use for the old one. I don't need to replace it. So this is not the big.
Oh, so you have Apple TV already?
I have Apple TV.
So
already.
You don't feel like the 1080p bump is? Nope. You need it. You don't need it.
I don't want to spend $100 on that.
Okay.
This is not clearly.
That's Lego money.
Well, yeah, and this is clearly not. The big TV play that Steve Jobs alluded to when he was talking to
no, but I think it is a step towards it. It's
another
little step.
It doesn't negate the possibility of a actual TV later this year.
Right.
An Apple television, as it were.
Yeah. This is just an
conversation for another day.
The box, the set-top box.
One thing that was really interesting is that they actually demo. iMovie syncing. iMovie and the movies and TV shows are iCloud based now too.
Right.
You've always been since the last update, you've been able to download TV shows again and just stream them from iTunes.
Yeah.
Now you can also do the same thing with movies you've purchased.
By the way, the other thing is, so iPad got iOS update to 5.1 today. Apart from Japanese support for Siri, do we know what else that did?
So PhotoStream, you can now on your iPad or iPhone delete photos from your PhotoStream.
Oh, good.
It won't push. It won't
It doesn't delete them from the server.
It doesn't delete from the server,
right?
And it will only delete on the phone. So if you have a photo in your photo
stream,
it
doesn't delete it from your photo stream,
no,
right?
And it won't push. It won't refill your photo stream with like the
once you tell it you don't want that picture, you're not going to see it.
It's gone.
Right.
But
Okay.
it's good if you accidentally take a picture of your balls or something. And you don't want to have that on your phone.
I take pictures of my balls all the time.
Right. Well, you're braining people. I mean, you don't want to.
Right.
You don't want to.
What this means now is that you probably want to keep your photo stream under 1,000, and then curate that even more, so you're not losing the. You'll have your 1,000 favorite photos.
You an Apple
on your photo
TV guy,
stream.
Brad?
No.
Okay, you don't care about this either.
I've got consoles.
So Japanese Siri, we have that right now on iOS 5.1. It
All right.
works.
Good.
Yeah. Domo.
I didn't understand. I couldn't understand it, and
We don't speak Japanese here. It turns out.
and
So.
it didn't interpret, and it couldn't parse our.
Okay.
We fed the Siri voice into Wes's Android phone into Google Translate in his Android phone, and the characters came out exactly the same, but we still couldn't read them or really understand either. So, failed experiment. But yeah, so that's Apple TV. I think that we'll see a big announcement with WWDC for iOS 6, and then and that will include apps, introduction of apps.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
I don't know what that.
Lady Siri Japanese.
Confirmed. It's a lady.
Yes. No Spanish still, which I think is really interesting. I don't know if Spanish is a hard language for voice recognition or
Apple's just racist.
Apple's just
No Spanish or
racist.
Chinese, and China's their fastest growing market.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll get there eventually. They're rolling this stuff out in different territories all the time.
And that's it for Apple. We'll talk about predictions and what we've been testing. We're building. We're building enthusiasm, waiting for
I
it.
don't know why you keep putting it on.
You're going to be glad I put it off. You said a lot of dumb shit last week, Gary.
Let's see.
Can I present my own version of one last thing?
Yeah, of course. We got plenty more tech news to talk about.
Yeah.
though,
I
right?
don't want to belabor this too long, but this
Yeah.
is the first major rollout for Apple since Jobs passed.
Yeah,
So I mean,
that's true.
none of us were in the auditorium, so I guess we can't speak too directly to this. But just to put like a human angle on this thing, like what was your guys' sense of the attendees of like how this thing was, just from like a kind of a showmanship standpoint?
No one was talking about it.
Like nobody was saying, "Oh,
Business
Tim Cook
as
is
usual.
super charismatic," or like
Yeah, and it seems like Tim Cook did a good job.
like
did a
serviceable.
nice job
All
on the
the
4S
Tim
stuff.
Cook is charismatic posts went up when he did the Goldman Sachs keynote.
Well, and the 4S.
It
launch.
had a lot of the kind of the flourishes that we knew Jobs for. Like he was saying, like, oh, everyone's been asking, when is someone finally going to make a tablet better than the iPad 2?
Yeah.
Well, it's us. Like it's the kind of
Google sucks.
Yeah, it's the kind of and it actually followed the Jobsian style through. I mean, he changed nothing, right? It was like, let's talk about our retail stores. Let's talk about the market. Here's how we're selling more than every other PC manufacturer. All the usual kind of bragging stuff, and then they get to the products.
But he seemed less pleased with the product. You know how
He
when
seems a little
Jobs-
less effusive.
Yeah, when Jobs the keynote, he really
He had it was almost like a childlike sort
Yeah.
of pleasure with what they had made.
This is our most beautiful store ever.
Yeah.
This
Well,
is
not
a
just that,
magical.
You hear it in his voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The enthusiasm.
Yeah.
I don't think you got that. The video's up online. You can watch Tim Cook do the entire presentation. And while he's not dry, he just wasn't as filled with personality. I mean, maybe we just don't
Yeah,
know.
well,
it yet.
no one else is going to be Jobs, and it would be foolish to try. So you've got to do it your own way, but without, I think, deviating too much from the style that Jobs created. Because those events themselves obviously have become part of the
I
brand.
think that's going to fade as time goes on.
I don't think
I
so.
mean, like the impact. Jobs was a very unique. I mean, you
Well,
saw
yeah, I
him,
mean,
you
you're
saw
gonna-
him do his live presentation. It's unlike anything I'd seen before in the tech
No,
world. It's like watching
absolutely,
a rock star.
and that mythic element, well, you can't ever replace that. No matter who it is, because Jobs was the founder of the company and had this great romantic story about how he came back and saved it. Like no one's ever going to replace. He was a one of a kind. So Tim's never going to be able to replace that. But I still think the appeal of those kind of Apple announcements and the way in which they roll these things out and turn them into these media events. It was all over the news this morning. You couldn't watch cable news this morning without seeing news about the iPad 3.
Duh. The big telling moment I think for Tim Cook and that is how he handles the next product category rollout. When they do something new, those are the moments that Jobs really shine. When he sat down on the chair,
Right.
the designed chair in Yerba Buena and said, "Hey, we're going to talk about something completely new. It's lean back, blah 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 blah."
If you're talking about that, the issue with Jobs is not just who's going to sit in the chair and demo it. It's like who's going to fucking come up with it in the first place.
No, it's not. I'm coming up with it. That's a completely separate problem. But what I'm saying is Steve Jobs, when he sat down and was talking about the iPad or the iPhone or the iPod, not only made made a compelling sales pitch. He made people believe
that
this was the future, whatever it was he was talking about.
No, he did, but I'm just saying...
Even when he was full of shit.
I'm just saying that when Steve Jobs died, the number one concern within Apple is not, oh shit, now who's going to give the keynotes?
No, I know. But I mean, I'm assuming that they have a 5 or 10 year plan for product stuff, and that is influenced from beyond the grave.
Right.
Other news stuff happened this week, surprisingly. Peyton Manning leaving the Indianapolis Colts. That was big news. I like that they announced that during the Apple keynote so that nobody would cover it. That was good.
Except if you're on ESPN.
Yeah. Sports guys are all like, man, what's coming up with iPad 3, big screen, what? Peyton Manning? Oh wow, okay. Speech gun.
Yeah, Japanese researchers have developed a shut-up gun.
I like this. Can we get one in the office? No reason.
Well, it actually becomes becomes annoying before it works. So what they discovered, and it's more of like a experiment in psychology, is that when people, you can project loud noises at people when they're talking, and that will do nothing for them. But if you project their voice back to them, exactly what they said, but have a delay on it, their brain will stop.
Their brain will stop.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, but I have this issue on the phone sometimes.
Really?
Specifically talking to my parents because I don't know if it's because I'm on AT&T and they're on Verizon, but occasionally I'll get a little bit of an echo back of what I'm saying, delayed by like half a second to a second.
You are so freaked out.
And it is fucking impossible to continue talking when your voice is feeding back into your ear.
So this is basically a device that does that deliberately.
Deliberately and focused toward you.
Then I can attest that it is very effective.
And what they also do is they did some experiments with it. They realized that the delay has to be at a certain interval to really
So you're
work.
saying I could turn up reverb on Gary's channel, he wouldn't be able to talk anymore? Dun dun dun.
You could just ask him to not come back.
No, I like Gary. I just like giving him shit
it.
about it. That's really cool. Is this something that we can go to the store and buy?
Absolutely not.
Why not? Is it for cops?
No.
Is it for James Bond? Is this going to be the next James Bond movie?
I don't know.
Okay.
There's a cool photo of a researcher holding what looks like a radar gun, and it's a speech jammer.
Okay.
I think it's a cool piece of technology.
I think it's neat technology.
All right, what else?
Canon had some stuff to announce.
We talked about this when we did the final Lego show, but Canon finally announced the 5D Mark III.
I don't remember talking
DSLR.
about that during that
Well,
show
you didn't.
at all.
I did because you were building.
Oh, okay.
And this is the long-awaited sequel to the 5D Mark II full-frame DSLR camera. Expensive, $3,500.
Wow.
And
this is a professional camera.
This is a
Explain
high-end
full frame.
prosumer camera. Full frame meaning the sensor size basically equivalent to a 35 millimeter frame.
So like a normal, like a 50D or something like that has a smaller sensor than a piece of 35 millimeter
There's a
film?
crop associated with that, so the lens that you use will be cropped in when you're using, for example, an 18 millimeter lens. That will just be a 24 millimeter lens.
By the way, I only have until 5:30, just so you know.
Okay. So 5D Mark III, photogs are totally into it. Nikon has something that they announced earlier, the 800, and it has slightly better specs in terms of the sensor, but the autofocus isn't as great. Both shoot great video.
But so this is what filmmakers are going to be buying?
This is what filmmakers are going to be buying. House had episodes shot with the 5D Mark II, so aspiring filmmakers are totally going to be buying this and buying lenses and turning these into
it's a top level camera.
Yeah. Did you ever check to see if Indie Game the movie was shot with a 5D Mark II?
I don't know specifically, but I would bet heavily on it.
Yeah. Shot with a 5D Mark II.
Yep.
So that is a thing. The Valve Steam Box. This is basically Valve's PC-based console. It's a closed box system that they'll
supposedly
rumor.
All of this is pure.
This ties into them being in the CS directory, but not actually having a booth or claiming to be there when we ask them if we can have a meeting.
So the version
it would also explain why they've been holding the big picture interface back so long.
Yes, all of these things are true because that big picture interface first popped up on the site in like 2011, right?
Ages, and I want it badly.
So are
you plugged in the living room now too?
Not permanently, but yeah,
you have like
I run a cable when I have something to play.
And you're plugged in the living room, Gary, and you're plugged in the living room now, Norm. We're all living room PC gamers.
Yeah,
it's a
love
lovely
it.
thing.
Love it, and that interface is going to be.
As of this podcast recording, they have not made any official announcement. Yeah. It's just been that one rumor post from The Verge.
On The Verge, yeah.
And Josh Twolsky's tweet afterwards saying that, I've seen a lot more, but I just can't say right now.
So do you think that they... do you think that, like, people have tried this before, that Phantom console, which seemed like it might have been an investor scam type situation.
Hey, they put the lap board out.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they did.
No, they said they were going to. They sampled.
That never even came out.
Sent units to people, and then they never sold them.
At least it physically existed.
We got suckered into it at Max PC. We did a profile of it. It was pretty cool.
That's a real weird story.
There were 12 of them.
Yeah.
So there's been some discussion about whether or not Valve would actually really make a box, or if the Steam would be like a THX certification thing they would put on approved.
I think either way
hardware.
works. Right. I almost like this certification better because then we'll see some interesting hardware design.
I mean, what makes
rumor
it
says
compelling?
that they have a unique controller scheme.
Okay, that's interesting as well. And what to me, what makes it interesting, unlike the Phantom and other stuff, is that the Valve / Steam brand is massive. Well, that's a big deal.
Yeah. They control the way the games are delivered to you. They're smart enough to know that they have to include things like Origin and Direct to Drive if that's still around, and whatever other delivery services there are.
Right.
And they also have the lift with developers through Steamworks to actually get support for their stuff into the games.
So that's
which is really important.
That's where the weird sticky issues come in, because what is this thing on the inside? Is it just a PC that's going to run off-the-shelf Windows with an off-the-shelf Steam install? Because if that's the case, then you have to filter what games are available on it, because a lot of them just would be completely unplayable on the couch with a controller.
Well,
like Sims, and there are plenty of games.
Well, but that's why
Steam.
this control scheme is probably
unless
part of that.
Unless they have a novel controller.
There's still going to be hundreds or at least dozens of games that will never get updated to work with that stuff. They aren't suitable for that kind of gameplay.
Well, but they're comfortable doing that now. I mean, the Mac Store filters out anything you can't see that's available on Mac.
And again, I think Steam probably has enough clout that people going forward would recognize the need to support that control method if they have.
I mean, they would pretty much have to brand it and say only the games with this little Steam whatever icon on it are going to be available on this thing.
Right. And I think people.
Steam Engine. I saw some people referring to this thing.
And Valve could even play hardball and say, if you want to put your game on our service, there are various cert boxes you got to tick, and one of them is you got to have our control mode support.
Like Game for Windows.
Games for Windows. Yeah.
So that's the other thing. If it is just going to be like a stock Windows install with Steam running on it.
And Valve is in a position where Steam is a big enough retailer now that they can push people around if they wanted to.
How does so they would need a per box Windows license, right? Like, how does Microsoft relate to this stuff? But I mean, this thing is going to be a direct Xbox competitor. Like, how do you think
Microsoft is going to sell copies of Windows because the Windows division doesn't give a fuck about the Xbox division.
Happy to sell licenses,
just like any other OEM.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things that are interesting about this versus something like the Phantom. The hardware over the last 10 years since I think the Phantom was like 2002, 2003,
or even the Alienware X, the
X51. That's the new thing.
Like the hardware is in a place now where a $400 like a cheap box that they're planning on, like if they're selling on a console model where they're selling the hardware at a slight loss, expecting to make money on game sales over the next X number of years, like they're in a position where they could be giving boxes away for free. They could be, like they could look at your Steam purchasing history and say, "Oh, okay, Brad, you've spent $2,000 with us a year over the last 10 years. We're going to send you one of these for free just because we like you if you want it, or have just a nominal cost so that like there's enough of a $100 bump,
$100 buy-in, and then
So and what I'm thinking also is that they could tie this into spectator sport because with Dota 2 has become a big spectator sport, and so if they have an interface where you can stream data and render that locally, and
you're literally running the game on this thing and just spectating from within the client.
That is a perfect living.
I don't know if it all feels a bit pie in the sky because it's kind of out there and we don't have a handle on it yet. But I kind of feel I want it to happen. I think it's very, very interesting because I think if Valve can actually come together, and they, like I said, they're one of the few companies that has the clout to do it, right? To provide a set-top box that is essentially a PC that plays all your PC games, but standardized hardware. It's cheap, it's affordable. HDMI right into your TV, put it in your living room. That has the potential to utterly revolutionize PC gaming and give it a huge, huge boost.
The only difference between that and OnLive is that it's done locally and not in the cloud.
Right.
OnLive's the same thing. The console's free.
Yes, but again, the other big difference is no one gives a fuck about what OnLive is, whereas people know what Valve and Steam is, and they're going to buy into that brand.
That's
You're absolutely right about it revolutionizing the PC, but at some point it stops feeling like the PC. Like at some point it's just a more powerful console if you're sitting on the couch with a controller and you can only play couch.
It may not be,
but don't we already live in kind of like an age of enlightenment past that, where I don't really think of it as PCs and consoles anymore. They're all just boxes that play games.
The biggest thing for me is that there are certain kinds of games that are much better suited to having a surface to put a mouse and keyboard on and being close to a monitor. Stuff like RTS and MMOs are
and I feel confident that the Steam box will have a USB out or a Bluetooth thing in there that'll allow you to still play with a mouse and keyboard if you wish, because a lot of people will. But they'll also have another control scheme that means that you can play PC games without having to rely on that.
I mean, there's nothing to say you couldn't just plug this into your monitor and a mouse and keyboard and use it on a desk.
Yeah.
Like this could be something that you could use in a lean back mode on the couch or lean forward mode at your desk.
Yeah, I mean, it'd just sit there like a Mac Mini right now, right? Like on your desk, and you can have it as a typical lean forward, like you say.
Although, I mean, as I've found over the last few months, splitting display output from the same machine across multiple rooms gets a little sticky based on your living arrangements. So that's
it's a wife challenging situation sometimes.
Yes, exactly.
And I think a lot of PC gamers also have much higher expectation of the hardware.
But again,
wouldn't want to go with the Mac Mini model.
Imagine if it's the size of, say, a Mac Mini. Let's imagine it's around that size. If your wife comes in and says, "Fuck off, I've got to watch Downton Abbey," then just unplug it and take it upstairs. Plug it into your PC.
The other thing that the big hole that the PC's had over the last 10 years since the launch of the PS3, PS2, and Xbox One is that there hasn't been entry level PC gaming. PC gaming has only had a high end. For a long time, you had to spend $1,000, $1,500. Well, $1,500 and then $1,000 if you kind of wanted to get started with a modest modest PC that could play high end.
There's never really been a way to walk into a store and walk out with a PC that you're confident you can play games on.
Right.
Well, they tried that. Alienware tried it. Dell tried it, with deals at Best Buy where you'd walk in and say, I have $1,000, and here's a $1,000 PC that'll play Crysis. It's branded with Crysis,
but $1,000 is a lot of money.
It is still a lot.
$300, $400 is a much more reasonable amount of money.
I think if there's going to be if it's a box that we're talking about, I think like a $399 or something is very compelling.
Yeah, and I think given the state of the PC market and the fact that they really have a good profile of what people are buying on PC, like they have 10 years of purchasing information almost on people who signed up for Steam to play Half-Life 2, right? They're going to be able to figure out, they can look at that and they can tell all sorts of interesting things about how much people play based on what kind of habits they have and what types of games they like and all that stuff.
Not something I'll be buying.
No, I mean, it's not for us. We have expensive gaming PCs.
Sure. But if this comes to pass, I hope it is the best thing that could happen to the other consoles, because a console-style box with better specs and, more importantly, a more open and developer-oriented marketplace.
And more frequently updated.
Yeah. But just, Steam is a platform that any tiny developer can get on with minimal barrier to entry.
Absolutely. It's great for grassroots indie game development, and it's great for just it opens up a whole new world to the PC that typically hasn't been there before. PC, I think, is generally looked at as like enthusiast, high-end gaming, people that are willing to spend the money to swap out components, and that's brilliant. But for people that just want to dip a toe in the water, it's not easy to get into. So a box like that would be like a gateway drug. So maybe you have a Steam box for a year, and then you do go and build a mega PC because you've got into it and you want the full experience. So it could be a good little entryway into.
Yeah, and if it forces Microsoft and Sony and maybe even Nintendo to relax their policies as far as how all their stuff works, then it's better for everybody.
They would need to improve the
more
Steam
competition.
UI
it's always
lot,
good
though.
Well,
that's the big picture thing.
But the larger there's two things: the update frequency of the hardware. Because I mean, if they're basing it on PC hardware, it makes sense for them to update it every 2 or 3 years rather than every 5 or 6 years or 10 years.
Maybe every year, even maybe.
Yeah. So
the Apple model, right?
Depending on the pricing, that totally makes sense. So especially if they're going to subsidize for people who buy a lot of games. So it's a really interesting. We'll find out more soon, I'm sure. Quadricopters at TED. You want to talk about this at all? Or since we're limited on time,
super cool. You should watch the video on YouTube. TED's going on. The one on last week.
Is TED ever not going on?
Well,
feels like there are videos always coming out.
Main TED, Long Beach TED.
Not that I'm complaining. I think it's amazing.
And there are some really cool quadricopter demos. Lot of cool synchronized quadricopter flying stuff. Watch it online.
And then the last thing is the smart TV stuff from Samsung was announced yesterday.
They actually are on sale.
Tuesday.
And people have gotten real demos. The stuff they announced at CS, but no one ever got to use. Bottom line, upshot is that it's still not that great. But they're mimicking everything that they think people want. Kinect-style gestures, wand-style remotes.
They're making app TVs better, but they're still not good enough.
Don't buy this year's smart TVs.
So for if you want app. I mean, buy them if you want a TV. Don't buy them for apps.
Yeah.
All right.
Are we done?
I was going to play some music and then talk about what we're testing.
Do you not care about Google
Play?
Anything
else?
Do you not care about Google Play?
I don't know about Google
Play. They changed the market to Play.
What?
It's actually pretty big news. I'm
Wait,
surprised you
what?
didn't see
They
it.
changed the Google Market.
It was on like the
Google
local
Play.
news last night, so I assume it must
Yeah.
be a pretty big story.
What's the Google? You mean the Google Marketplace is now called Google Play?
Android
Correct.
Market, basically now
Android Market, correct.
it's content in the cloud. It's you buy a movie, a book, or a song or whatever. It's on all your devices all the time. The Android market's being completely reinvented as part of Google Play.
Like
Really, you didn't see
basically
this week? It was a huge story.
going after
I missed it
iCloud,
entirely.
right? Basically.
Yep. Going after
Yeah,
iCloud.
it's basically their
and,
iCloud
and
Play.
iTunes
Wow.
Match and all
Yeah.
that stuff. Like they're directly
All
going
right.
after
Well,
all
we'll
that
come
stuff.
back next week after you've read up on it.
Well, I mean, it seems like you guys have a pretty good idea. Explain. Inform me.
Gary said it all. It's
Okay.
iTunes competitor. They're rebranding. No more Android
you buy,
Market.
You buy product
apps
from
gonna be
you buy
good now?
music or a song or a book or whatever from Google. It'll run.
Didn't you already do that with music? Like if you buy music from
but the
Google,
music
you just keep it
marketplace
that
is
way?
separate.
This is across all
and now
content.
this is one marketplace for everything.
You would have
Oh,
an
I thought you
Android.
could already do all that with,
Yeah.
with Google.
Well, you
I'm sorry.
couldn't.
Well, good. That's awesome. Everybody wins. Yay.
Competition's good for everybody.
Okay.
Is it worth bringing up all the raft of phone hacks that happened over the weekend? Is that
You mean the
numerous salacious
be
photos?
careful
and
with
stuff?
apps you install on your phone.
Yeah,
That's
it was
takeaway.
shocking to me to find out that there are these like security vulnerabilities in these phone platforms to the point that
it's-
people can pull data off of your phone.
It's unclear what the vector
I don't-
of transmission.
I don't. Nobody seemed to know exactly how it happened, but it's kind of scary.
No one's saying how. So a lot of celebrity, mostly women, seem to get their phones hacked this weekend. There's a lot of racy pictures posted on the internet.
All right.
It's unclear what the vector is. So my hunch is that somebody wrote an app, because there's also been a lot of controversy over the last 2 or 3 weeks about access by apps to photos on iOS and location data on iOS and photos on Android. So there's gonna be more about that. Like people are figuring that out. There's no specifics really yet. Boom. Instead of what we're testing this week, we're going to go down the scorecard, the prediction scorecard.
Finally.
Finally, the moment you've all been waiting for. Last week, as we closed out the news, Gary, Norm, and I made several predictions, some of which were wrong, some of which were right, on all fronts, Mr. Batting 1000.
Let's get into it.
I'm going to just start at the list.
I have brought your eggs. They
Thanks.
are here.
I do appreciate that, Gary.
Freshly hard boiled.
I hope you brought one for you.
Freshly.
Maybe
No,
two.
I have 2 for you for both of the major things you were wrong about.
Okay.
So these are organic, pastured poultry. So
How
they
did
are
you boil them?
Very high quality eggs.
What was your?
They were hard boiled.
Do you put them in the cold water and then turn the heat on, or do you wait until the water's boiling and drop them in?
You put a little bit of
How
vinegar
long?
in there.
They were hard boiled for 10 minutes.
Okay. That's
a long
They're
time.
fully hard boiled. They're
Okay.
completely good. These are good eggs. And,
Okay.
I'm
Did you
sure
shell them already,
They're
or
all
are they?
shelled. They're ready to go. They're ready to eat. Peel and eat.
How do I know they're not poison?
There's nothing wrong with them.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about who was right, who was wrong, and then we'll decide how to divvy up the 2 eggs.
Well, I was right and you were wrong. I mean, what's the conversation?
Everybody was correct.
We
about
just talked about it.
Everyone was correct about the higher resolution screen. We all said yes, higher
Yes.
resolution screen is happening.
Okay. Nobody doubted that.
I said that the button is not going away. Something I was correct
wait,
about.
you did say that.
I did say
okay,
that.
so you were right about that.
I don't think any of us said the button was going away.
No, Norm said that there
I
was.
didn't make a prediction on the button.
You were quiet about a lot of
because
stuff.
that seemed like I didn't think the button was going anywhere.
Of Norm, you and you made the fewest predictions.
I made the fewest.
Yes.
Yeah, because I make the ones I feel good about. I don't just throw predictions around
You were
willy-nilly.
being conservative and you'd
not
already
at all.
thought about your egg scheme. I think
Not at all.
Norm said no screen vibration, which was correct.
Yeah, good for Norm.
Haptic. Yep.
Norm nailed the price on the 16 gig iPad 2 at $400.
No, Gary nailed it first. I
No.
agreed with him.
Gary originally said $350 for an 8 gig. Gary made multiple predictions about price. We settled on
goodness.
the correct price, which was a
my
lower price $400 iPad 2.
Yeah, except you
I
didn't
said
settle
that there
on that
I said
because
there
you
wasn't
said that
gonna be
wasn't going to happen at
That's
all.
egg-worthy.
Okay, that's egg number 1.
Hold on. You've got some stuff that you were wrong on. Let's see. You said that 3G was going to be replaced by LTE. That's correct.
Yep, absolutely. You said it wasn't. That's
I
egg
said it
number
was
2.
not. That is also incorrect. You said that Siri was definite. Definite yes for
Now,
Siri.
Given that Siri is at least partially
No.
there,
No way.
I think we can give that a push.
No.
I will play the
the
outside
judge.
arbiter of this situation.
Right.
That sounds like an awful cop out to me.
No.
You said highly unlikely Apple TV.
Hold on.
I said
Wait.
absolutely
No,
Apple TV.
No, Apple TV like a fucking television set. Yes.
you said
Not
Apple TV,
an
not Apple
upgrade.
television.
No. Now, see, now you're retreating into semantics.
They're
We
like-
were talking about Apple TVs being out of stock. You said, I don't think there's going to be a new Apple TV next week.
No. Gary said no. When Gary said no Apple TV, I believe that he meant no physical television.
Oh,
Yeah.
Go back and listen to the podcast. It is very clear what he meant. We were talking about a small black box.
No, I don't think that's right at all.
Okay.
But
Of course.
I'll let that one
But
go.
I will not let Gary pass on the Siri because
He was
the word
adamant about Siri.
Does this new iPad have voice recognition or not?
Siri and voice recognition are not correct. Not the same thing as we established in the great iPad iPhone
You know
4S
what?
versus Android
All right,
debates
life's
of
too short.
2011.
I'll take that one.
Okay.
Okay.
Um,
Let's go to Will though.
okay.
Will was wrong on the two biggest issues.
Well, Norm said there was going to be an active bezel.
I did not say there was going to be.
Yes.
What did I say?
You said that the button is going away and there's going to be an active
I never
bezel.
said the button's going away.
You said Marco Arment talked about active bezel.
No. Did you listen to it?
Yes.
Now you're putting words in my mouth. I said
Putting eggs in your mouth is
No,
what's
I said
happening.
there's gonna be. I said there's gonna be a home button,
Uh-huh.
and I said if there was no home button, then I hope there was gonna be an active bezel.
I don't think that's correct, but I did not take that. I didn't transcribe. I just took notes. You also said that there's going to be a $350 8 gig iPad 2, which was also incorrect.
Okay.
I said, let's see, I called the Apple TV 2 weeks out.
All right.
I said that the Siri is going to remain phone specific.
I think
so
what
100%
we got
correct
right
on that.
does not matter. It's all about
Yeah,
what
let's talk
got
about what you
wrong
got.
Okay.
and how committed you were to those
Yeah,
statements.
let's talk
I
about
did not note how committed anyone was. I did, however, say no sub $500 new iPad. 100%
That was
correct.
a huge one, and you whiffed
And you-
it.
Who fucking cares? It's for kids. But yes, I was wrong. Thank you.
And okay.
I said that Apple TV will have apps. That remains to be determined.
But, okay. That's a pass for right now.
I said there was going to be no 4G.
Although you're kind of wrong though, because you're saying it's going to have apps, and it doesn't. I may as well say, well,
Yeah.
Siri is to be determined on the iPad 3.
Norm made some predictions that are to be. No, there's no fucking Siri in the iPad 3. They don't say
then
Siri on the
and
iPad
there's no
3
fucking
page.
apps on the Apple TV.
And then you also said no. You said it would go on sale March 23rd, not the 16th.
Just,
I did
just,
say
just
that, but
because
that
they
doesn't
changed the
matter.
interface
So,
to make it look
of
like
the things-
more apps, there aren't
'cause-
actually apps.
There may be apps in the future. There's not going to be Siri in
and
the
there may
future.
be Siri in the future.
there are only 2 eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
will
I
we
think
gotta
Norm-
go.
I think-
no.
if there's
we
only
gotta-
2 eggs, then you've got to give them to the 2 biggest whiffs,
The
and they are
biggest
both
whiffs.
wills.
We can know that the biggest whiff is the LTE.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That
huge
one
whiff.
egg
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Give me
goes
an
to
egg.
LTE.
Pass the
Take
eggs.
the egg.
I'll
Take-
let you handle them.
I'm going to let everybody enjoy this. I'm going to make big
So
chewing
the-
noises.
what's
this is breaking the
contentious-
#1 rule of podcasting.
It's no eating during the
No
podcast.
eating during the
Yes, but people,
Dude, you overcook the shit out of these
Yeah.
eggs.
No,
They
they're
smell
fine.
so
10
10
bad.
minutes. 10 minutes is too long.
10 minutes
That's
is
too
how
long.
that's a hard boiled egg.
No,
That's
you do
too
10 minutes
long.
if you start it cold.
Yeah.
I'm cracking this open. If it's green, I'm throwing it
Take
at
a
you.
look.
Oh,
Take a
there's
look.
nothing worse.
It's not going to be
It
green.
smells terrible.
It smells like an egg.
I'll just take a bite.
Okay, it's good.
Wow. That was,
See? Thank
That's
you.
what's done.
Wow. That's not overcooked.
No, it's like I know what I'm doing.
I'll eat the other one.
That's a
if
good
anyone
egg
wants
too.
it.
It's a nice egg.
Yeah, it's pastured.
It's delicious.
Egg. Yeah, organic and fresh.
You mean pastured as in it was raised in a
pastured
pasture.
poultry? Yeah, those are the good eggs.
Free range.
Fully free.
Better
range.
than free range.
Yeah, actually
Oh,
better than free
What's
range.
the difference?
They walk around in a field instead of like being in just a pen.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a complete. It's like natural chicken life.
They eat grass and worms and shit. Okay, I think that the Siri thing is a bigger wrong
Then you're
than the sub
But,
$500.
but it's not totally
Wow.
wrong because one of the key features in Siri is in there. So I'll still admit the wrong, but I don't think it's egg worthy.
Is
Because
that
no
as
way,
big
no way is
of
it in the
a
top
wrong?
2 big things that
Yeah.
were wrong. There are other things that were more wrong.
the sub 500 pricing.
It's huge.
We got to go back to the recording.
Who here is buying an iPad 2? Brad, you buy an iPad 2?
Nah.
No,
Gary,
the
you buy an iPad
relevance-
too?
You
What's
know
that
what?
got to do with anything?
relevant- Yeah.
Apple's doing it. That's what we said.
I'm just looking here. I see voice recognition. I don't see anything about Siri. I'm just saying.
Find me a whip.
Man, this egg is good.
I'm telling you. Well,
Then you should eat another one.
Enjoy because there's another one.
You're
coming.
really missing out if you don't eat this egg, Gary.
The 2 biggest whiffs are, and correct me if I'm wrong. There's a bigger one.
It even says dictation.
Is the iPad 2 at the lower price, and 4G. Those are the 2 biggest features. And you
However-
were 100% wrong. on
However,
both.
if we are talking about things that we're majorly committed to, Brad doesn't know because he didn't listen to the show yet. There was massive commitment to Siri. Siri is the future of Apple. It's what they believe in. It's their biggest feature. It's the thing that differentiates them.
Yeah,
Oh,
so-
you're a fool.
and
It's
that's
not
why
going to
there's
be
and that's
phone
why there's a
only.
huge chunk of Siri in the iPad 3.
Yeah, the part called dictation. I'll eat the egg. I don't give a fuck. I think you're wrong. We'll let the people decide. We can just save it until next week if you want.
You
I
should
think
eat
Will
the
actually.
egg.
I think Will
But
actually
if the
just
peop-
liked that
The
egg.
egg was really good. I
He's
meant for the
happy to eat
second one now.
Eat the egg, but
What is this one all fucked up? What did
That's,
you do?
I was aggressively peeling the egg in a rush.
Did you
to get
wash
out of
your
the house.
hands before you
Of course
peeled
I
this?
did.
With soap?
It smells so
Yes.
bad. Oh, I hate
Speaking,
the smell of that.
speaking
hard-boiled egg.
of things you've been testing,
Yeah.
do you guys have a foolproof method for peeling a hard-boiled egg without taking
Tap
parts of the
it,
white
roll it
off
like, tap
Yeah.
it and roll it like that
until it cracks all
yeah,
around?
just roll it like until it cracks all
Okay.
around and it will come right off.
These are less
Huh.
chilled than I like
The
a hard-boiled egg.
pastured eggs are much tougher to peel because the shell is really strong on a pastured egg because
It
they're
just-
like
it just
fucking
pulls parts of the
kryptonite
white off
chickens.
with
They're
it,
like
right?
super powerful chickens.
Where'd you get those eggs?
Oh, it smells so
I get them,
bad.
you get them at like the shishi market.
Well, Andronicos
Yeah.
or something, right?
Yeah.
These
And
are
they're
good
re-
egg.
Yeah, they are really good. Leah won't eat any other kind of eggs now. Once you eat
Yeah.
those, you won't go back.
Once you start on those, you turn that.
And in fact,
forever.
what they do is when the chickens go back into their coop at night, the coop's mobile, and they move the coop overnight
I've
to
heard
another
of
part
that.
of the field where
Yeah.
they always have fresh pasture. Yeah.
Man, the chat is calling you a bitch, Gary.
Why am I a bitch?
I think that's it. I think we should move on. We have a couple things that are TBD. The apps for Apple TV. I'll give you Siri as maybe coming out in the iPad 3 never. But I mean, if you want to believe that, you can.
I give you credit for eating the eggs. I thought you were going to try to weasel out, but
I fucking love eggs. Why would I like the egg?
because it's a symbol of your humiliation and
No,
and
you
failure.
missed. You didn't write the failure on the shell. That's what you have to do. Is you write the thing that you said wrong on the shell,
Well,
and then you have to peel the shame
but
away.
okay. Well, I was trying. I made it easy on you.
Also,
I didn't want to give you any excuse to not.
Also,
eat
I'm
the
the
egg.
one who hates.
Norm's the one who
eggs.
hates eggs,
I-
so it's no punishment to
hate-
me.
But
Like
and
a
so
hard-boiled
like,
egg.
Norm didn't get anything wrong.
The
so
smell.
it's
The
all good.
smell of the hard-boiled egg is punishment enough.
Norm got the active bezel thing wrong, but we're gonna let it slide because he really hates eggs. Let's do like one or two quick questions. We'll roll into fake outtakes. Call it a day. I think we have 20 minutes left for
Just
you.
do
Gary.
one question, because I'm really going to run out of time.
Okay, I'm gonna do this one then. Hold on. Brad, you want to?
I'm good.
No, you usually say the thing.
What? The emails?
Well, but we do the other one because it's we don't do emails. We do
So what do you call them?
questions.
Questions.
Boom. If you have a question, it's podcast@tested.com. Send it in. Keep it under a minute. 45 seconds is better. Listen to it. Make sure it sounds good. Blah, 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 blah. We say this every week. Here is the question.
Hey guys, I'm writing you to ask about camera apps for the iPhone. I'm looking for a no-nonsense app that gives me control of exposure and focus as much as possible. I'd be in heaven if I could control aperture, ISO, and shutter speed values manually. Also, if I can find an app that outputs photos to RAW files, that would be great. I've tried looking through the App Store, but all I find is crappy filter packs, so I definitely need somebody to suggest a name because it's impossible to sort through the filter packs. So. A quick would you rather lose an arm or a leg, knowing that the prosthetic replacement you're getting is as advanced and feature-filled as your imagination can make it? Thanks, you guys. I love the podcast.
Arm. I want an arm with
Probably
laser
an
guns
arm.
built
Yeah,
in.
arm.
Laser guns, machine
As
guns,
feature-filled
rockets.
as my imagination.
There's no point having one robot leg.
I was
You're
going
going
to
to have one
say, if
leg
you can
much
have-
faster
you
than the
can-
other.
I was going to say, if you can have two legs, then the
hop.
leg.
Really?
Yeah.
You'd rather get two
Dude,
awesome
you could,
robot
yeah,
legs
Because you could like
than,
jump 100 feet in the air.
Yeah.
than two awesome
You
robot
could
arms.
run. Because imagine how fast you could run with two robot
Yeah,
legs.
you think about the way legs work. The legs can take so much more stress. If you put like super powerful arms, it's not like you're able to
You know what?
lift
Fucking-
600 pounds.
if we
'cause
were
your arms
Forget
will
that.
rip
He
off.
said anything you can imagine. I will put rockets in my legs and fly.
Well, you could do that with one leg. You
if
just
we
have to
were
put
a
it in the center.
superhero team where we had to split two arms and two legs,
Yeah.
I would take an arm, or it's limbs, superpowered limb. Like we can't have the same abilities. I would take power.
Well, I would give myself an anti-gravity fist and just fly that way.
The thing is,
Oh, yeah.
you'd have to be
There
like,
you go, like
yeah.
Legionnaires.
Yeah.
The power, the flight ring.
Imagination is your only
Yeah.
limit.
Well, you'd have to be. It would have to be like the Saturday Night Live superheroes, the Ace and Gary. Like one of you has the super powerful rocket legs, and one of you has the punching fist. So you make together,
Okay.
Voltron style.
Yeah.
You make one superhero.
All right.
Who wants bionic eyes?
Good.
the-
I'm glad that's settled.
I would
Yeah,
avoid. I would avoid the
serious
arm
questions.
because I doubt your lady friend would enjoy the cold metal caress of a robot.
Well, but if
hand.
it's anything you can imagine,
Fully featured.
it's fully fleshed.
Yeah, it doesn't. You
It's data.
Yeah, you
All
don't
right.
know that it's a robot arm.
Yeah,
All right.
it's indistinguishable except for the laser guns that come out of the end.
Yeah.
and the anti-gravity fist.
That's right.
Norman Chan, you have a favorite camera app? I know.
There is no camera app that I know of in the App Store that lets you change ISO or shutter speed. I believe aperture is fixed on the iPhone, and
No RAW support,
exposure,
obviously.
Obviously, no RAW support. The only app I know, or one of the apps I know that I like, Camera Plus, will let you refocus, split up focus and exposure, so you can manually set exposure. Not like stops. You can't configure it that way, but you use tap on the screen and split that up. So you can have the exposure set to a different part of the screen than your focus, but you cannot change ISO or shutter speed.
Yes.
There you have it.
And no RAW support ever. That'll do it for questions. We will do more questions next week, I promise. I'm going to thank you guys for coming. It's always good to see you, Mr. Shoemaker.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Brad.
Gary, thanks for coming as always. I know
happy.
we
Couldn't
missed
keep
you
me away on a day like today.
We missed you on the last couple Apple days, and I'm not sure why.
I know. Why?
But,
Work intruded.
No, I'm not saying why you weren't here. I don't know why we missed you.
Oh. Because as we've just proven, I am the most knowledgeable when it comes to predictions.
Or luckiest.
Gary, is
that
what they refer to as taking the piss?
What's that?
What he's doing.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm used to it.
He does it to me. I do it to him. It's a love relationship. Norm, I will see you tomorrow and every day ever after. We'll be back next Thursday with more podcasts. Until then, stay tuned for fake outtakes. And today's outro song is brought to us by, which one should I use? I'm going to use KJN's. Hi there. I didn't see you.
Tested.
Don't say it though. What? Are you Siri? You Siri?
No.
Oh.
That's not the one I meant to do.
That's the worst one ever.
Appropriate.
Yeah, I thought that was right for the day. We have topics. We have topics for fake outtakes today. We usually don't do that.
Okay.
Usually we just sit here and go, oh, what should we talk about?
Why do we have topics?
We should talk about Lego a little bit.
I suggested one.
I thought you were done with Lego.
Which Lego could segue into.
Well, we never talked about the finale.
We never talked. Yeah, you talked about the finale on your what we missed post Lego Build live show while Norm and I were getting loaded.
Right. Right. But
yeah.
but Bricked ended in
Bricked
dramatic
is done.
fashion. Dramatic fashion.
Norm did a horrible.
There
horrible
could be no
thing.
more dramatic.
I think we're even actually after the. So let's. I'm going to show how the sausage was made. Norm sent an IM to Gary like 3 months ago, and said, "Hey, I would like to throw a Superstar Destroyer
I said
at a
I
Lego
want to
Death
buy
Star."
a Lego Superstar Destroyer.
Okay, and
That's
then
what I said.
and then
I said I'm gonna get Will to buy one Death Star, but he's likely gonna pussy out.
I said I'm not spending $400 on some stupid Lego bullshit, which was the right answer, just to be clear.
And I said I wanted to recreate the end of Return of the Jedi.
Right, which was a good instinct.
Right.
And then
no one thought I would do it.
I did not think you would do it.
I didn't want you to do it. I didn't think you would do it.
It was horrible when you did do it.
And it was a shocking moment for all concerned.
Awful.
It's one of those moments.
Were you surprised? Because if you look at that slow motion video, you look genuinely surprised that he really went through with it.
The thing is, he threw it, and I was looking at it, and I saw it, and I was like, and it went really fast. It wasn't like sometimes stuff like that happens, and time slows down, and like you have time to think about it. This time, I was just like, he threw it. I was like, oh, he missed. He hit the table. It's going to be fine. And then I didn't think about momentum carrying the Death Star off the side of the table.
The Death Star didn't
and
actually
the
shatter
3-foot
until it hit the floor.
No, the 3-foot drop was real bad for the Death Star.
Right.
And then I was sad. But also, I was like, "Oh, okay, that worked out okay. I hope the shot was good."
You created a moment.
Yeah, and yeah, it's.
I'm amazed that you were able to do it. I thought that once you had finished it and saw the grandeur of your creation, that you wouldn't be able to go through with destroying.
And I actually talked about this on. I gave some foreshadowing on Bricked a few episodes before, where we talked about NPR and I talked about listening to This American Life segment, where they did a study, and people, when they're on camera, are more likely to do things that they say they would never do.
We also foreshadowed the very first episode
because they're on camera. I don't remember what was the first.
We talked about it. We talked about somebody asked a question at some point. Maybe it was the second episode, but somebody asked a question real early on that was like, "Hey, are you going to do the end of Return of the Jedi?" And blah 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 blah. It was a very fun thing. The race, I don't want to alarm people, but the race wasn't serious. It was a little bit serious.
It was serious.
No,
Some
it was
people
wrestling
took it seriously.
serious. It was, people got fucking crazy. Like, there's no cheating. We didn't have rules.
Well, no, there was quite a lot of cheating.
Regardless of whether the race was serious or not,
yeah,
people took the cheating seriously.
People got bananas.
And Will got really hurt.
No, I didn't get hurt.
Will was so hurt.
No, I became worried when we started having 100 thread comments about my professional capabilities outside of Lego because of behavior during what is essentially internet wrestling.
And like I said, you played the heel character
I did
to a T.
But
again, the difference is in wrestling, it's completely fake, and the outcome
didn't have
is
a
known
script
beforehand. There was actually a real, even though you're saying it wasn't serious, there was a real competitive aspect.
We were pretty sure from about halfway that like once Norm started on the superstructure, I knew I was completely fucked.
No,
like,
and I was completely serious when I said I thought
you
Will
didn't
could come
believe
back,
me.
We could come back from behind and do a troll.
Right, the Game of Thrones. In retrospect, that Game of Thrones game really hurt my ability to have a conversation with Norm that was serious about the real state of the build.
Right.
And also, he didn't ever look at the 7 bags.
But I don't think you should let this dampen your own interest in Lego.
Yeah, don't take it too personally.
So I went back and actually built the blockade runner this weekend.
You did?
Yeah, which was
good.
super fun. It's a really good build.
Yeah.
There's a lot, like, it looks like there's a lot of pieces that are exactly the same, but there's enough variety to make it really fun.
All right, great.
It's a good size. There's a model. There's stuff to play with and stuff. It's cool.
Yeah.
Lots of moving bits.
Are you now? What's gonna happen with the Death Star that was destroyed?
I picked up the Death Star when I dropped Norm off at his house last night. We still speak together and are still friends.
And Norm has already rebuilt the Star Destroyer.
he
Amazingly got it rebuilt already.
Do you have a meth habit or something, dude?
Yeah, how did you do that so quickly?
So Friday night, I
Yeah.
took both boxes of pieces from the Death Star and the Superstar Destroyer home.
Yeah.
When we were picking up the pieces at the office, we tried to find the ones that looked like they were part of the Death Star and put them in the Death Star box. Everything else went in the Superstar Destroyer box. Went home, did some light sorting. Wes helped me. And then basically Saturday, starting at 11 a.m., built... took a little bit of shifts with Wes, but mostly I built till about 6 p.m. and was finished at 6:30 p.m.
Yeah. If we were serious about the Lego race, we would have done the same kit.
Did it help that you had already built it?
So absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
you recognize pieces.
You know what I
and
realize
stuff.
is that the smaller pieces that are connected, the superstructure stuff, many of those pieces were actually still intact.
Right. It wasn't completely obliterated like the Death Star.
The pieces that were bigger,
The Death Star, like all the plates are still good. It's
Okay.
just you probably took them apart when you were looking for other pieces.
But I remember seeing even when Norm threw it, the kind of the underside base of the Star Destroyer was basically still fairly intact, right?
the difficulty wasn't in the rebuilding. The difficulty was figuring out which steps I had to skip and could skip.
Right.
Because
some stuff was still built.
Was rebuilt.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to detach this.
Yeah.
But and then I rebuilt a piece, and then I realized on the table that piece is already there.
So what's going to happen now with the Death Star?
So I'm going to try that this weekend. Gina and I are going to sort out all the pieces and work on that this
rebuild
weekend.
it. We can rebuild it.
Yeah, the nice thing about that is it's a modular enough thing that like one of us can work on one level, or
Right.
one of us work on the other
Right.
level, and it'll be fun.
Yeah. It's cool.
So and then we'll bring it back into the office.
To
when
rebuild it
we're
all
done.
over again.
Yeah.
Now Gina gets to have fun. It worked out for the best.
Exactly.
It's an endless circle of life, destruction and creation.
Yeah, so I mean, next time we're going to drop it off. Oh, also, no pieces were harmed that we're aware of. There might have been a couple of the Death Star spokes that were a little bit bent,
Right,
but they
right.
popped out nicely.
Right.
And all the Superstar Destroyer pieces were good. We didn't actually destroy anything. All we did was waste 22 days worth of building 30 minutes a day.
Right.
So other than our
you credit
time,
all that wonderful content in
yeah,
the meantime.
I don't know if I would say
People had
wonderful,
fun.
but we created a lot of content.
Yeah.
Wonderful's pretty strong.
And you were
I
able
would
to
do it
create
again
this
in a
whole,
heartbeat.
this whole villain persona.
Right, if you
which,
can't make it good, at least make a lot of it.
And I know, and next time we do this is going to be something completely different. It'll be a more constructive.
yeah, I feel like this whole exercise was very much a one-off. I don't think Bricked 2 is something anyone's clamoring for in the near future.
We'll do next amazing test. Will be a MAME cabinet or some big project that'll be
Okay.
fun. We'll learn to weld and do all sorts of crazy shit and build
All
a
right.
giant dinosaur for the desert or something.
Sounds
Before we
good.
close the door on Lego, at least on the podcast, the Lego convention, Bay Area
Bricks by the Bay.
Bricks by
It's
the
coming in
Bay
a couple of
convention
weeks, right?
is actually next Sunday, the 18th.
Oh, it's right around the corner.
The Sunday after the iPad comes out.
Oh my god,
Oh my goodness.
it's too much.
Too much
Too
good
much.
stuff. This has been an amazing
It's a confluence of nerdiness.
between Mass Effect 3 and Windows 8 consumer
Game of
preview,
Thrones.
Game of Thrones,
Blu-ray, that season, that the new season,
It's expensive.
Bricks by the Bay, iPad 3. I mean,
And
it's all-
GDC.
GDC. I mean, it's crazy.
We saw Indie Game the movie last night.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen it yet, Brad?
no.
Brad's in it.
Yeah, Brad, you were in it.
So
you
I
were
hear.
prominently featured.
So I
Wow,
hear.
you're a
Yeah.
movie star.
Hooray.
You're
When
on
do
the
I- when do
TV
I-
on YouTube.
When do I get my SAG card?
You don't get a SAG card.
Aw.
It's a documentary.
Will's voice is in it too, prominently.
Yeah, they used they like when I was asking you questions and you were getting annoyed with me while you were playing Super Meat Boy.
Yeah.
They used a fair amount of that, like
Really?
of the interesting
Wow.
stuff from
That's-
that conversation.
That's
amazing.
amazing. That's embarrassing.
Check that out.
No,
Was it good?
It was good.
Patrick saw it too. He said that part was pretty funny.
I thought it was like people
Did
were
the
laughing in the
audience
theater
respond?
and
Okay.
it was a real active crowd because it's the GDC crowd.
Yeah.
and
They responded not for Will or you. They responded for the movie.
Yeah, the
Right,
movie.
The movie was great.
Right.
The movie's not at all what I was expecting and really, really well done. It tells a really lovely story. If it comes to your town, you should go see it. If you like indie games, I mean, they go through the whole thing starting with Braid and Jonathan Blow's kind of early success with that, and then all the way through Super Meat Boy and Phil Fish and Fez. And
it's not one of those documentaries where they jump from like interviewee to interviewee.
They do a little bit.
They really follow two main storylines, track the journeys of the developers of Super Meat Boy and Fez, and then the Jonathan Blow stuff kind of.
He's the anchor for the whole thing, kind of. It's like I said, not at all what I was expecting. It tells a story. You can take it's wife and girlfriend friendly. Like it's not. It is a story about people, not a story about video games.
Surprisingly dark.
And it gets dark and funny, and it has all the stuff. It's March of the
Pride.
It's March of the Penguins for nerds.
Funny and touching.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Fucking seals. I hate seals.
What else?
Ninja Warrior is on the list.
I discovered only recently the show on G4 TV.
How did you just discover this show? It's been on for 10 years. It's fantastic.
Because I don't watch G4.
Oh,
that's a good reason.
Ninja Warrior.
Okay, I'm down with that.
And I thought it was like one of those bad History Channel science shows where they try to like analyze the science of ninjas.
But were ninjas really aliens?
Exactly.
There's no evidence to suggest they weren't.
Yeah.
Therefore,
exactly.
aliens.
I was reading recently that there's plenty of evidence that ninjas didn't exist.
What?
Like that whole, the whole popular conception
Don't
of
burst
ninja
my
is just
Get the fuck out of here,
is
Shoemaker.
basically a bunch of
what it is-
nonsense.
And of course, that's exactly what ninjas want you to think.
Yeah.
Sure.
Ninjutsu.
Next thing you're gonna tell me,
That's
Teenage
the
Mutant
ultimate
Ninja
ninja
Turtles didn't
stealth.
exist
Is convincing
either.
you they don't exist.
It's on the G4 channel here now, but what it is a repurposed, serialized Japanese show, which is actually at 2 specials they do a year. Then on 27th season, 3-hour special, they put that in a 6 episodes on G4. But you know that show Wipeout that's on ABC?
That's a good show.
Where it's just like the clumsy people, and sometimes they have like the nerds and like the
and they give them those
models.
insane obstacle courses.
And it's like the funny, like the Nerf obstacle course, where there's a Connect game where people get knocked into a pool of water. And
Yeah.
It's like that, but ninja style, requiring real
Like they have to
physical
climb up
effort.
20-foot walls
So
that are 30-degree angles and
It's
stuff
very
like that.
Japanese in the sense that all the stuff they love, like Mario, it's like Mario combined with American Gladiators. You remember American Gladiators? How you watch that show, the original
Tennis ball
one?
cannon.
Yeah.
And it was
I wish I had a
that
tennis ball
final, the
cannon.
Eliminator, I guess it was called.
Yeah.
Where you start off with that treadmill, right?
I remember the Eliminator,
It was a gauntlet, and everyone wanted to run through that gauntlet because you wanted to see.
Yeah, if they put that in Universal
Right?
Studios, I would have done it every time.
Or
I
they
went
had
to
that
LA.
at the local gym, right? You'd
Yeah.
pay to run through that. You would not pay to run through the Ninja Warrior course because
No.
it is fucking hardcore.
And people end up like they get like I remember I watched one episode where nobody made it up the first ramp. Like people just get to the first thing and like they can't make it up this 30-foot ramp and come out with bloody faces
is it
and the
theoretically
whole thing.
possible to make
Yes.
it?
Yeah.
The thing I can't stand about Wipeout is that there's no chance of success, so there's no tension because
Design. So 100 people do it every season. They select 100 people, and some of those are people like jokers. Like
There's like random
They have
William
people in
Hungs.
costumes. Exactly.
Sure.
But there's 3 stages or 4 stages. Only about 10 people make it to the second stage, and there's no chance. Like if no one makes it, that's it. That's the season. Only 3 people have ever completed all 4 stages.
Wow.
In
Right.
the 27 seasons they've done
and
this.
they do things like bring in Olympians. Like they brought in what's his name, Ham, the guy who won the gold medal, the men's Olympics gold medal.
one
Like
of
they
the
brought
twin
that
brothers,
dude in. They bring in like people who are the best physically fitness people in the world.
All right, so pretty
and
tough.
throw them at this ninja thing, and they just fucking hit it like a brick wall.
All right,
It's fantastic.
I'll look for it.
Freaking insane.
Okay.
still
Really good.
Always looking for new TV.
Ninjas are
Despite G4,
Yeah.
you know, like you watch it despite G4,
All right.
not because. And then the last thing is Ralph McQuarrie.
Yeah.
Macquarie.
Macquarie.
Yeah, rest in
Yeah,
peace.
yeah.
sorry.
Just the amount that you guys have been talking about Star Destroyers and Death Stars and Blockade Runners and all that stuff. I thought we had to observe.
We owe
his passing.
Ralph
Yeah.
McQuarrie a debt, of course, because he was the guy that designed a lot of those amazing things.
And he
Like
did
all of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
basically.
he designed R2D2.
right.
Like
and Darth Vader
Yeah.
and X-wings and everything.
Yeah, and also what's
everything
on
about
Raiders of the
Star
Lost
Wars.
Ark and all, a lot of the stuff that came out of that kind of magical Spielberg Lucas era was Ralph
Yeah.
McQuarrie's design.
Yeah.
So
And he did concept paintings, right? That was
Yeah.
how all that started.
yeah.
Every
So-
time you read a making of Star Wars book and those covers, the paintings.
Yeah, it's always Ralph McQuarrie's
Yeah.
work. Yeah,
Yeah.
every time.
So I guess that'll do it for us this week.
Just one
anything
final.
else?
This should have gone in like what we're testing, but we did that slightly differently.
Sorry.
You tweeted a thing this week about the ecological price of one-shot coffee makers.
Oh, right.
which
You
I thought
did.
was
Yeah.
was interesting. You know, it was
The thing I've been telling you for a year and you've been denying the entire time.
Your Pinko Commie Tree Hugger
Yeah, you know.
newsletter.
You drive a hybrid, Chief, not
So
me.
I picked up a little. I picked up a thing called an Eco Brew, which is a little plastic cup that goes in the Keurig that you can put your own coffee grounds into, and it's great. So you get the convenience of the one-shot coffee, but you empty the thing out every time, so you're not creating that.
It's a reusable Keurig cup, basically.
Yeah,
That's
basically.
the first thing I've ever heard that's made me want to get one of those Keurig things.
Yeah.
Just the idea of being able to make one cup and then done.
So it's ecologically
also get
sound.
an
You're not throwing
AeroPress.
away the non-recyclable thing every time, and also you can grind your coffee and put
That's the real
you put-
benefit, I
you-
think.
Yeah, you can put freshly ground coffee right in there, and it's totally fresh coffee.
So have you experiment with like different size grinds and stuff like that to see what
No,
works best?
all I did was I tore open one of the disposable ones to see how finely that was ground, and then just used and set my
okay.
grinder to the same thing, and it works great.
Did you check to make sure the mesh is the same size on the bottom?
I mean, I ran a cup through it this morning, and nothing came through. So I think I've got the settings right.
Perfect.
And there have been these reusable cups for a while, but it's kind of a hassle for them to work. You have to pull out like the whole canister that comes with the Keurig, and then screw a thing on top of it. If you want to go from a disposable to a reusable, it's a big hassle.
Yeah.
Whereas this one, the Eco, it's Eco with a K. I got it off Amazon for like $10.
It's a terrible name.
I know it's awful. Little green plastic thing, and you just pop it in the same way you would pop in a disposable cup. So there's no hassle, and I can see myself using it quite a lot.
Sounds like a resolutionary new advancement.
It's totally
in coffee
revolutionary
drinking technology.
Yes.
And that'll do it for us this week. Every Thursday. See you guys next week. Bye. Is that it? I guess we're done. We don't play music.
No,
you
that's
didn't
pretty
get
much
that's
it.
You ended it.
Well, Gary, we're a minute late for Gary. I don't want to screw him over.
It's all right.
Stream is still live, so don't say anything controversial.